All she wants to do is check in with you. She's keeping it real by asking how you feel. Ooh, how do you feel today? Ooh, you can say it any old way. Pick an emotion or make one up while sitting with your coffee in your favorite cup. Let it all out by describing your mood. Just don't be lazy and say I'm good. This is Jennifer and her channel is so cool. Jennifer, Jennifer, your cats have lots of fur. We want to pet your cats to relax our mind. To watch your channel is to truly unwind. Ooh, find a place to be you. Ooh, the truest version of you. The best version of you. Just be you. Welcome to the channel of wealth, rich in wisdom and mental health. This is Jennifer and her channel is so cool. So come on in and take a pew. All she wants to do is check in with you. She's keeping it real by asking how you feel. Ooh, how do you feel today? Ooh, you can say it any old way. Pick an emotion or make one up while sitting with your coffee in your favorite cup. Let it all out by describing your mood. Just don't be lazy and say I'm good. This is Jennifer and her channel is so cool. Jennifer, Jennifer, your cats have lots of fur. We want to pet your cats to relax our mind. To watch your channel is to truly unwind. Ooh, find a place to be you. Ooh, the truest version of you. The best version of you. Just be you. Welcome to the channel of wealth, rich in wisdom and mental health. This is Jennifer and her channel is so cool. So come on in and take a pew. All she wants to do is check in with you. She's keeping it real by asking how you feel. Ooh, how do you feel today? Ooh, you can say it any old way. Pick an emotion or make one up while sitting with your coffee in your favorite cup. Let it all out by describing your mood. Just don't be lazy and say I'm good. This is Jennifer and her channel is so cool. Jennifer, Jennifer, your cats have lots of fur. We want to pet your cats, to relax our mind. To watch your channel is to truly unwind. Ooh, find a place to be you. Ooh, the truest version of you. The best version of you. Just be you. Welcome to the channel of wealth.
Hello. 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 How's it going? Hiya. How are we feeling? How's it going? How you doing, Wild? Did you finish streaming? Money boy, I saw you out here. Are you gonna come out here and say hi? I'm so excited. It's so hot and gonna probably rain maybe, and windy. Windy was the word I was looking for. Guess what? It's candy corn season. Yeah, do you want to monitor the weather for me? I'm eating candy because I'm excited. Snacks and feelings. Who is hosting it? Who's hosting it? Ah! Who did the host? Thank you for hosting. Nice cat content. There's a really funny show right now on Sarcasm. Hello. How you feeling today? Cal, good morning. How you feeling? Wild, you should check out the cat rapper dude that I see on TikTok. He's on the new Netflix show. That's cat people. Yep. Money boy, come out here. I'm gonna try to get him before we get distracted. Hey, Fredo, good morning. How you feeling today? Oh, okay, Wild. Okay, cool. Meow. Meow. Exhausted, overwhelmed, and anxious. Hugs. I'm feeling toasty. I'm feeling excited and nervous. Excited, nervous, curious. Let me go get my kitty. Hold on. Hi, Bobby. Meow, meow, meow. What? You didn't want to do a hold? Moogas, good morning, good afternoon. Hey, Bubby. Can't you just say hi? Sorry. I tried. I also didn't charge the other camera, so also sorry for that. Whenever I go get him, I always lose my breath. Boom, 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 boom. I'm feeling tired today, relaxing, was looking forward to your stream. Yay, that makes me happy. Hey, Supa, how you feeling today? God, it is so hot in here. I feel like the temperature just went up like 10 degrees. I am on a big quest today. I am feeling. Waits for feeling word or tries to decide if you are simply feeling. I'll get back to you in a week. You know what time it is. Why am I weird? So the song, it said Vilde Boot Sobeyer, and that really means like Vilde Boot Sobeyer down there in the chat. You see him right there? That's this. You. Because weird is original. I was trying to figure out what to say as a greeting since it's not the morning. True story. True story. Oh wait, I didn't need to charge my cat cam because I got this one too. Feeling worried, hopeless, numb, detached, and serious headache. Keep yourself hydrated, my friend. I know that you're probably stressing, and that's 100% understandable, and I feel like to be expected. So just keep trying to take care of yourself the best you can, please. I know you're not feeling the best. I identify with at least 2 of those feelings. Take a big step back. Yeah, I just lit some incense from this world. It's what I did today. Ooh, thanks for sharing. I think that you will find, like, sometimes it doesn't feel like you, like, I don't know, for me, whenever I wanted to, like, pull back or not do, you know, something like just, you know, be off Twitch more or put more time into myself, like, who freaking knows what that means? Like, that's so freaking hard to describe, and it's hard to do if it's not something that you're, like, used to doing at any point. And sometimes even then, I don't know about them, I'm not to that level yet, so I can't speak. But when I do reach, like, some good moments of, like, I feel rested, I really try to, like, take note of that so that I don't forget or, like make an excuse to not try to reach that level and, like kind of put it off. Like, I'm not trying to deal with that or put that much effort into it or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but that's where I'm sharing. I actually love your stream. I don't know how, I know I don't come often due to my work schedule, but since I came here, I try to use feeling words more often and other words other than good, bad, sad, or tired. I love that, sarcasm. Thank you so much for sharing. I thought about it today, and what ended up happening was unfollowing a bunch of people and decided what I wanted in my known world. It's a great place to start building with only the known. I like that, and I think that, I think that I'm glad that you're here because you might find some helpful inspiration or, I don't know, reaffirmation, or, like, you might feel empowered. I don't know. I just know that, like, I am bubbling with energy because I have no clue to describe how excited I am for this conversation. In the sense that, like, the guest today is actually, I realized it earlier today, the guest today is a large reason why I made my little compliment book, or my little book of compliments that I've referenced before. Yes, I also realized just how weak I was by myself, which is why I came here. You're great. Thank you so much, Supa. I really appreciate that, and I am extremely proud of you for taking the time to figure out, like, okay, I'm doing this, and then I did this, and I'm still not feeling great. Oh, here's an outlet. Here's where I can be. Hopefully this will help. Like, shout out to you for that, and I hope that you even got a little bit nice feelings in your heart just then when I kind of laid it out for you. Like, you did the things, you still felt uncomfortable, then you tried to figure out, and now you're here, and I'm glad, and I'm excited, and I hope that you enjoy today. So, when I say she was like the inspiration for my compliment book is because I just noticed how eloquent she had compliments for me in the way that, so one of the things she said was, you exude an energy that is so genuine and grounded. And that was just super, super like impactful in the way that, thanks Mugas for the host, in the way that I lost my train of thought in the way that I was going this, but I'm just super excited to have her on because it's like I can say that same phrase back to her, basically. And I just really appreciate the way that she words things and how she can talk about things. And so I think that makes a big difference as well. My husband's nephew was having a birthday party today, but I was feeling anxious about going out since his family isn't the easiest to be around. My hubby totally understood and just went to take a gift for us. Decided to protect my energy. Super, super proud of you, Kel. Super proud of you. High five. I'm also feeling really burnt out from work and felt anxious about it, but I'm looking to quit my job and looking for another one. I'm super excited but anxious about this whole thing. You know, you guys, I just realized that Supa, you just shared an accomplishment. Kel, you just shared an accomplishment. Sarah, you shared, I feel like you shared an accomplishment in the way that like you acknowledge that you're burnt out. You are allowing yourself to think about getting a different, like, you know, it's positive. You're not just like wallowing in it. And so one of the things that Malia and I talked about like a month ago or so was that there's this thing coming up and there's like a lot of like just kind of new something or other and that is going to happen like in this kind of time period, like over the next couple days. She's going to expand more on it, but it's just really neat to say, like, to see that like we all kind of are having similar you know, energy things and stuff, and that's cool. I'm excited for that. It is totally an accomplishment for me to do something about my feelings. Ooh, that one's not a good one there. Alright, let's try this again. I also think that if you can't tell already, my cheeks are red enough that it is too hot in here, so I'm gonna have to close my windows and turn the air on. One moment, our guest just hopped on the Zoom, so I'm gonna talk to her for a moment and then we'll get ready. Hello, Endrika Star. How you feeling? Hey, Ava. Hi, hello. Okay, so I, need to go shut all of my windows and turn my air on because it is really hot, and then I'm gonna switch us over to the interview screen. Work for you?
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. And
okay, perfect.
Background noise for me?
Say that again.
Can you hear any background noise from me?
Okay, so here's the problem. I'm not going to be able to, I can't personally because I don't use headphones. So I have to have your volume low enough that it hopefully doesn't like pick up an echo on my mic. But I don't know if that means that chat can hear it. So we'll test that when I switch us over.
Okay.
Okay, hold on 1 second, guys. I got to shut my windows. I'm going to turn my music back on. One moment, my friends. Hey, Mello. Hopefully the air isn't too obnoxious. Yes, I'm excited too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, I'm pausing the music. Alright guys, now I'm switching over to the interview screen to bring on our guest, Malia. And then I'm out of breath now, sorry. And And then just bear with me as I start adjusting things and let me know if everything sounds good, okay? So, wait, I need to deactivate my camera so I can activate it on Zoom. Okay. And then, video! Okay, now, do you want to say something, say hello, and then chat? Let me know if you guys can hear her okay?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh no, I can't hear you at all.
Oh, no.
Okay, I turned it up a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, I also needed to send you the closed captions. Are you okay with using... Oh, you can see that I am sharing my screen for this. Don't mind me over here. Do you, are you okay with using closed caption? It's just a browser thing that I'll invite you to, and then you just have to open it, I believe. Okay, one moment. You can hear her, but the volume is low. Okay, hopefully we will get it all figured out.
Yeah, I have my volume up all the way.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out my lighting situation. It's really bad lighting in here. That's too bright. I might have to turn off that lamp. Oh, maybe it
So I have Pixel Chat. I need to turn this one off. Can open the dedicated CC page. Didn't I do that? Stop. Start. Stop. Bear with us, guys. Thanks for being here, my friends. I'm like sweating.
Oh.
I don't know why the CC... Hi, Yellow Soda. How you feeling today? I don't know why it's not working. Start. Oh, it's because I'm supposed to be in Chrome. Turd nuggets. Hold on. Don't mind my potty mouth. Haha. Get it? Okay. I'm sweating. Aha! Here we are. Okay, now I'm gonna send you the link here.
Okay.
And then I can turn this back on, turn the chat off, figure out why I'm blurry. Technology does what it wants. Big facts. Okay,
My link's not working. Do I have to open it in Chrome? Is that what you were saying?
yeah.
Okay.
Yellow Soda, I am feeling excited today. How are you feeling? Oh, turds, I need to change all the things. Ah!
All the things.
Okay. I think I will see you pop up when you do get it to work. If it doesn't end up working, that's okay too.
It's giving me a 404 error message.
Okay, hold on. Link copied to clipboard.
Okay.
Green halloumi cheese. What is that? And thank you, Andrika. I appreciate that. Gotta turn the chat back off. Did that one work or no?
No, same.
Turds. Okay. Well, at least we tried, and that's the important part. I can try to do something for the YouTube video. Well, anyway, thank you for being here today. Oh, I gotta get my thoughts back together now. Thanks for being here today to hang out and talk about pretty much all the things that we've been talking about over the past few days. Oh my gosh! Why? Try to get the interview questions back up. Makes it seem like I was a lot less prepared. Oh, see? Now they're over here. Now they're over here. Makes it seem like I'm a lot less prepared than I was. Okay. Okay, cool. We're good now. Thank you for being here. Okay, chat, can you guys hear her? Do you want to, I guess, just go ahead and introduce yourself, and then if chat has an issue, we might have to restart a little bit, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Jen, for having me. I am just super thrilled to be able to just share this space with you right now, because we have had this, I think, connection for a number of years now, and I feel like we've already been in each other's life, but this is officially the first time that we're actually kind of having this sort of interface. So it's just really, really, really cool to be here. My name is Malia D'Alio. And I am, I'm so used to giving my work spiel. I'm trying not to do the work spiel right now. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so I am currently right now I'm in Bellingham, Washington. And that's where I live with my 9-year-old daughter and my ex-husband. That's a very long story. And I'm from Hawaii. I'm from Oahu. I grew up on Oahu, and I have lived in Washington. I came here for college, University of Washington, back in 1998, lived here for 6 years, moved back to Hawaii, and was there for 10 years, and then got married, had a kid, and decided it was really difficult to survive there and raise a family there because of the cost of living and just a multitude of other reasons. And I moved to Boston, to Massachusetts, where my husband's from, lived there for a couple years, and then we both decided we'd move back here to Washington. And this has just always felt like home to me, so I was really grateful to come back. And since I've been back, I've had the chance to work at Seattle Children's Hospital, which is where I'm currently employed, and had a number of different jobs with them since we got back. So yeah, that's an elevator pitch snapshot of where I am right now.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing. It's always fun to hear, I guess, like what people have gotten to do, because, I mean, granted, I don't know when people get to leave, but darn camera, I need to upgrade soon. But I do know that, like, I haven't yet gotten to move out of Iowa, like, born, raised, still here kind of thing. And so it's always fun to hear what people have gotten to do, just kind of in general, really, I guess, because a lot of the people I'm around also haven't left. So
well, I actually lived in a small town 40 minutes outside of Boston. So I went to school and was working in Boston, but commuting from this really small town called Mendon outside of Boston, where my husband is from, and his family, and all of them have been there forever. They've lived there since, probably the Mayflower, and a lot of them, still have roots there too. And it's interesting to hear you say that, because I'm kind of the opposite. I feel like I've been a little bit of a butterfly for a while, and I think that now having a kid and raising a child and trying to establish a family is really difficult to do if you don't have your home base nearby. So that's sort of the challenge that my ex-husband and I have been navigating, because his family is on the East Coast and mine is in Hawaii. So we don't have the support system here. And that's really, really challenging. So I understand now and appreciate now why people don't leave, and all of the benefits that come with staying close to your home origin.
yeah, no, that's definitely a fair perspective. I guess I always forget about the kid thing, because it seems like the more I learn about life, the less inclined I am to have a child at this point or anytime soon. But
Sure.
that does make sense. I just need to get out first.
No, I understand.
um, no, that's cool. Thank you for sharing. So, one of the things that I don't remember, it was a couple months ago. I don't know if I came to you privately or if I posted on Facebook and then like also tagged you in it where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just discovered that like maybe I learned how the US acquired Hawaii and I previously apparently like I know that I didn't learn about it in that way, so I didn't remember it, but like obviously I know I like learned that they became a state." And so one of the things I was curious for or hopeful that you could share with us was kind of what your experience or like what you kind of learned from that. How hard has it been to kind of keep things straight in terms of potentially media versus home and then the home stuff not getting to you because of it not being in the media, and then as well as just like I don't know, just kind of like what is different compared to maybe what everyone thinks that they know. I don't that's I you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that, um, you know, I strongly encourage people not to feel bad about what they do or don't know, or what they aren't up to speed with. I'm like so much that I still have to learn about other people's history, about other people's culture. So I don't think, even though Hawaii is a state, it's been a state for a really, really short amount of time when you kind of look at the US as a whole. We only established our statehood in 1959. So my mom was born in 1950, right? So that happened when she was 9 years old, which is still kind of crazy to me. But there's a lot about, I think, to kind of, and I need to preface all of this by saying that I am in no way, shape, or form a Hawaiian history major. I am not a content expert, even on my own culture. I still have a lot to learn. And so I think it's really important to approach any conversation where I'm going to be sharing, you know, sharing any kind of facts or perspective with humility, and letting you know that, like, please do your own research, please fact check. I only know what I know through my life experience. So Hawaii was, so I think we have to kind of go back to the very beginning. So I'm Native Hawaiian. There really is only one Hawaiian. So that's another thing that we can kind of circle back to later. I think there is a misunderstanding about what Hawaiians are. Hawaiians are not people that are born in Hawaii. Hawaiians are not people that, are Hawaii residents. Hawaiians are not people that live there for a long time and really embrace the culture and could even have lived there for multiple generations. Hawaiians are an indigenous native people. So we were the very first people to, really discover the islands back in 400 AD. So that's a really long time ago. So there's a lot of, still to this day, a lot of historians that sort of have their own theories about where Hawaiians originated from. There is this Polynesian triangle in the Pacific. And so we are considered part of the Pacific Islander diaspora, and we are the Polynesian part of that diaspora. And so the Polynesians are going to be like Hawaiians, Samoans, Tahitians, Maori, which are native to New Zealand, um, and Aotearoa, and then there's and Tongans, and Fijians. And so the first Hawaiians came on literally canoes, and they established themselves on the islands there. It's interesting because there were already a lot of like native flora and fauna there. There was a native bird that we found the bones of that were the largest flightless land bird ever. I think they were like 2 or 3 times bigger than an ostrich, like massive. And they were pretty plentiful there in Hawaii when the first Native Hawaiians came, and didn't have any natural enemies or anybody that was eating them, and so we kind of wiped them out pretty quickly. But we've found a lot of archaeological findings with their bones and whatnot. It's kind of interesting to see how I think it's similar to what you would find in like the Amazon, right? One of the untouched areas of the Amazon. So Hawaiians were there. They established a system, they flourished there, and we occupied all of the islands. So there's an island chain, and the island chain happened because of the volcano and the tectonic plates. And so the volcano, the active volcano moves with the tectonic plates and then creates these islands. There's actually a new island forming underwater right now off of the Big Island, which is the southernmost island. So we were there pretty much undisturbed until Captain Cook arrived. And so when Captain Cook came, it's interesting because Captain Cook actually came to Hawaii twice. And the Hawaiians thought, well, more than twice, like a couple of times, but the Hawaiians actually thought, they had premonitions that there was going to be, their ancestors were going to come and, you know, and in kind of spiritual form, and they were going to come and revisit them one day, and they were going to come on. They had a vision of these. So I think that what they had was, I think they had a vision of the sailboats coming, and they interpreted it as their dead ancestors, because the people that they saw in their vision on top of the boats were pale. And so they just kind of assumed that they were, you know, their deceased ancestors, is my interpretation of that story. And so they saw the ships coming in and were like, oh, this is we saw this coming. We knew this was going to happen. We saw this coming. And so they kind of like greeted them, like, you know, very openly and welcomed them, and sat down and kind of did trades with them, and had a pretty good, good experience initially. Of course, what came with that was, I think that if Cook had just left and kind of like left well enough alone, he had just like come and then like left us be and went away, it would have been a great story. It like actually it would have like ended well for everybody. Unfortunately, I think greed tends to get the better of people. You know, there was women, there's Hawaiian women, there, you know, there was these sailors have been out in the sea for a long time. So there was a lot of interaction that occurred between the Native Hawaiians and Cook and other settlers that just ended up not being very, what we call pono. In Hawaiian, pono is balanced and righteous, like, you know. And so Cook came back, and then he and he got killed the second time. So with that also came the introduction of a lot of diseases, a lot of sexual transmitted diseases, you know, and really that was sort of where the paradigm shift occurred with the indigenous culture meeting the, you know, colonial settlers. So then you kind of fast forward, once Hawaii was discovered by you know, European and American settlers, it became it was really easy to see, okay, strategically how it had a lot of natural resources that they could use. It had strategically, it's like it's in the middle of the ocean. It's in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific Ocean. So from like a military perspective, there's a lot, back then it's all ships, right? No planes. So military, like there was a lot of Navy value to that. So it became, it became kind of a hub, internationally a hub. So even though Cook was the first one to come, we really didn't get, we were living pretty copacetically as an independent kingdom. So Hawaii was an Hawaii is the proper name, the way to pronounce it. Hawaii is it was an independent kingdom for a very long time. So we had our own monarchs. We had what we call ali'i, those are kings and queens, and we had our own government structure. And we were a major player on the international stage, on the global stage. The Great Britain was like a really close ally and partner of ours. There was a whaling industry, there was, plantations, there was like a lot of natural resources and trade going on. And, Hawaii kind of being in the middle of nowhere, being a refueling station for a lot of other naval fleets and business operations. And so it became pretty well respected and valued on the global stage. And that's important to, I think, emphasize, because we weren't like natives with like spears living in grass huts when Hawaii was overthrown. We were our own independent, structured, government like structured kingdom that had a lot of good, healthy, like business relationships all over the world, including the US. And so you fast forward a little bit to, and I think I want to make sure I'm not misquoting the dates yet, but really kind of where things took a turning point was during King Kalakaua's reign. And so he was, he was in, 1874 to 1891. So he was our king from 1874 to 1891. And in 1887, he had, it was basically like this insurgents, this small little militia of men, and it was a mix of mostly white settlers, but there were other people kind of in that fray, and they brought what is now known as the Bayonet Constitution, and they forced King Kalakaua to sign that, and they literally held a bayonet to his head to make him sign it, which is why it's called the Bayonet Constitution. So they were like a little guerrilla militia. And what that Bayonet Constitution did was it reduced a lot of the power, the sovereign power of the Hawaiian kingdom. And it allowed these competing, international foreign businessmen to really essentially start to strip power away from the Hawaiian government and undermine its authority. And so after King Kalakaua died, his sister, Queen Liliuokalani, took over. And she was our last official monarch for Hawaii. And so they're still operating under, sort of this Bayonet Constitution structure. And then in, let me see, what year was it? 1890. Yeah, so she took over in 1891. There's a really good book that she wrote called Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen. And she wrote that in 1898. And so if you're interested in reading, it's from her perspective in real time, which is pretty valuable. And they ended up, so there was kind of the second wave of insurgents happen with these businessmen. So there were established white, mostly American businessmen in Hawaii at that time, who were, a lot of them were, like one of them, for instance, is Dole, Sanford Dole, and he is now, like, everybody knows pineapples, like most of the pineapples in the world come from Dole, like that's their legacy. But what people don't know is that part of their legacy is also helping to overthrow my people. So Sanford Dole and a bunch of other US businessmen kind of created their own little pact, and they decided that they were just going to like go all in with our queen and fully overthrow. So they were like, okay, we've been kind of undermining the government for a while now, so let's like totally take things over. And so I don't know enough about the nuances of, of who they were collaborating with from the US government to be able to say how much awareness the US government had or did not have. But they did have the support of like a small force of military that was provided to them from the US government. So there had to have been some awareness. And so this, basically these US military troops show up, and they decide, okay, we're gonna, these businessmen are like, we're going to take over Hawaii. We're going to overthrow Hawaii. So that was in 1893, and they marched up to the palace, Iolani Palace. It's still there today on Oahu, and you can go and visit it. They give tours, and they overthrew the kingdom. And they basically were like, they kind of did it like, we're just going to do this and then ask for forgiveness later from the U.S. government, because this is in the best interest of the United States. Because at that time, what was happening was, Great Britain, a lot of British elites were marrying into our monarchy. So they were actually like married to and having children with our royalty at that time. And so they saw strategically that if they didn't do that, if the US didn't claim Hawaii at that point, that we would lose it to the UK. So they were like, we're just going to do this and ask for forgiveness later. So they did that, and then and they overthrew the kingdom, and they imprisoned our queen, Liliuokalani, in her own bedroom for 5 years. And so she at the time was actually had a really good relationship with Grover Cleveland, who was our president. And Grover Cleveland gave a speech to Congress, the US Congress, right after. And remind you, this is before email. This is before airplanes. So it takes a while for like messages, for messages, and updates on events that are happening on one side of the world and one side of, of the Pacific Ocean to reach anybody's ear in Washington, D.C. So there's a little bit of like a lag time there. But Grover Cleveland was well respected by the Native Hawaiian monarchs and had a good working relationship with us. And he actually went in front of Congress and spoke out against it. And he said that he basically declared that what had happened in Hawaii was an act of war against the Hawaiian kingdom. So that was in the beginning. And that was in 1893, kind of in the beginning of everything. And so Queen Liliuokalani had a lot of faith and confidence that because she knew President Cleveland, she felt he would do the right thing, and that once he found out about this, like everything would be squashed and he would make it right, and the kingdom would be turned back over to the Hawaiians. And it wasn't. And I think that probably the political powers that be, and probably a lot of the reasons, the original reasons for those businessmen overtaking the kingdom to begin with, ended up ringing true for a lot of Americans, that, hey, we really could use that. Hey, there's a lot of like, military value there. And kind of, it's already been done. So even though it wasn't done in the way that we wanted it to be done, even though it was done in a way that totally wasn't disrespectful or pono or legal, that maybe we just leave it. And then maybe we just kind of like, make that whole process official on the back end. And so that's what they did. So it was officially annexed a few years after that, like 5 years after that, I guess, after Queen Liliuokalani was released. So Hawaii becomes a territory of the United States at that point. And so that's in the late 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. And then it doesn't become a state until 1959. So for a long time, we're a territory, just like Guam, just like Puerto Rico. And then we got statehood in 1959, and that was, after World War II, right? So I think that played a role in that, in our statehood. I think perhaps Hawaii being the target during World War II for attacks from Japan really kind of expose our vulnerability, right? And like it or not, we're sort of, we just geographically are where we are. And there was always going to be somebody that's going to want a piece of that. There was just always going to be somebody that was going to find some kind of value in us. So we would never really be, quote, left alone, So yeah, so all of that happened, statehood happened, and there's still, so I went to I went to a school called Kamehameha Schools. So King Kamehameha is pretty well revered, Native Hawaiian king, who is the ancestor of Kalakaua and the ancestor of like this whole, before Kalakaua and Liliuokalani, it was all Kamehamehas that were occupying the throne. So it was like King Kamehameha the first, the second, the third, the fourth. And so it was all the Kamehameha line. So one of his ancestors, Bernice Pauahi Bishop, she was approached. She was actually tapped before Kalakaua, because Kalakaua is not a direct descendant of Kamehameha. He's just kind of like he's in the line, but he's not directly in the line. But Pauahi was. And so Pauahi had married a man named Charles Reed Bishop. And he was a businessman, really well respected. And she was tapped as next in line for the throne. And she told everybody, she turned it down. She declined it. She said, I don't want to lead my people. I want to serve them. And she and her husband weren't able to have any children. So they ended up forming schools. They both decided to leave all of their money and all of their land. They had a ton of land. They were really land rich at the time. Left a lot of land to forming 2 different schools. So her husband, Charles Reed Bishop, formed Punahou School, which is where President Barack Obama graduated from, and my brothers graduated from. And then she, Pauahi, formed Kamehameha Schools. And that was a school that she wanted specifically to be for Native Hawaiian children, because she saw what was happening and the changes that were occurring. And she saw, I think, had the foresight to see how that was going to continue to impact her people down the road. And she realized that giving them an education is really the best shot that they're going to have at surviving everything that is ahead of them. So she wanted to make sure that the children had an education, that children of Hawaii is what she stated in her will. The children of Hawaii had a good education, had access to a good education. And so that's where I went to school. So I went to Kamehameha Schools. And so it is a school that up until I think it's been about 10 years now, but about 10 years ago, there was a lot of lawsuits so up until about 10 years ago, it was exclusively for Native Hawaiian children. So you had to have Native Hawaiian blood to go to this school. I was the 3rd generation to go there. My grandfather went there, my aunts and uncles went there, my mom went there, and I went there. And then there was a lawsuit that happened, and they basically were splitting hairs about her will, saying that it says children of Hawaii, not Hawaiian children. And so we could interpret children of Hawaii to mean any child that is born in Hawaii or lives in Hawaii, right? So they ended up winning this lawsuit, essentially. And so that opens up a whole other conversation we won't get into right now. But the great thing about that, going to that school was I went there and my culture was, my education was centered around my culture. And so you go to a school where you're not all coming from the same place. We weren't all coming from the same backgrounds. We weren't all coming from the same experiences. We weren't all coming from the same economic advantages. Our common thread was that we were all Native Hawaiian. And there was something so beautiful about that I knew even when I was going to school there, because it's kindergarten through 12th grade. And what was great about the school is that was founded in 1887. Our school was founded in 1887. At that time, they had a lot of land that Pauahi left them. And then over the course of, that next century, the property and land in Hawaii became really valuable. So they were able to actually create like a really solid revenue stream. There's hotels down in Waikiki that they own. There's all kinds of swaths of land and that they're landlords too. So that still brings in a lot of revenue for the school. And then they've been able to do really well with investing that money. And they don't just invest the money into the students that attend that school. They invest the money into, like, my brother didn't go to that school, but he got a scholarship for college from my high school. And they give a lot of scholarships out. They gave me a scholarship to go to college. And so they really are, their mission really is about helping all Native Hawaiian children. And they did a really good job at like teaching us about our culture right away, because what happens, and so here's the thing is so we rewind a little bit back to Cook. When, after foreign settlers and started to really establish themselves in Hawaii, part of what was happening was there's this culture clash going on because Native Hawaiians didn't have a written language at that time. Most Indigenous people don't have a written language. And so a lot of our knowledge, a lot of our history, a lot of our understanding of the world, and our own genealogy, like all of that is passed down orally, is passed down through conversation, through chant, through song, through dance even. But we didn't have a written language. And so part of what the foreign settlers were able to do is they sort of like took advantage of that, came in and literally like posted signs that said, you have on Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian property, saying you have X amount of days to claim this land as your own. And the Native Hawaiians didn't have a concept of land ownership either. That's very important for people to understand. Most Indigenous people don't. Most Indigenous people don't see land as property. We don't see any natural resource as our property. We see it as a symbiotic relationship and a responsibility. We call it kuleana in Hawaiian, where we have a responsibility to take care of these resources, to take care of this land the way that it takes care of us. But that has to be symbiotic, and that if you are out of step with that, then it's going to have negative consequences for both sides, right? And that's, I think, a lot of what we're seeing with like climate change now. That we have a responsibility to take care, to malama, care for, to malama the land, the aina, and that it will in turn take care of us. And so part of what the Native Hawaiians, ancient Hawaiians did was, our land isn't split up from, like in most of America, everything's like on a grid system. So you have east, north, south, east, west, kind of, that's how land is divided. That's how most resources are divided. In Hawaii, you have what we call ahupua'as. And so if you look at Hawaii, like it's, the islands are all round, right? They're not square. So they're round like a pie, and then you divide it up in pieces like a pie would. And so the concept behind that is that everybody has what they need from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the sea, right? And so, but the caveat to that is that you have to take care of all of the resources so that the water, the fresh water that's coming from the top of the mountain, and then you have neighbors that live all along the ahupua'a, the fresh water that's coming from the top of the mountain should be just as clean and just as fresh and just as potable as when it's emptying out into the ocean. But if everybody buys into this system, if everybody buys into this concept, if everybody buys into their kuleana and their responsibility to play their role in caring for these resources, not just in front of them, but for their neighbors down the stream from them, then it works, then the system works. The minute you have people that don't have that inserting themselves into that equation and interrupting, that flow, that ecosystem, that symbiotic relationship, that's when things kind of start to fall apart. And so that's what happened. And so they came in and they were like, hey, you have this amount of days to claim the land that you and your ancestors have been living on since 400 AD, to claim it to us as yours, in order to keep the ownership of your own land. And they posted all these signs in English. Like, we don't, even if they posted, like, there was no written language. We don't speak English. We don't read English. And so as soon as that time was up, they came and then they just took the property, took over the land, and kicked them off of their own land. And what's important to understand about that is that that's actually still happening. So there are, and like Zuckerberg on Facebook, right? He's been coming over and he's been buying up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of land on Lanai and Kauai, in Hawaii. And part of how he's been able to do that is that a lot of those lands are, a lot of that chunk of land that he has is actually like divided into individual, we call it kuleana property, Native Hawaiian kuleana property. So there may be like families that had inherited pieces of land and didn't know it, or like they were maybe the last surviving relative, third cousin removed, right? And had possession, had legal rights to this land, but didn't know it. And so it just kind of like sat there, nobody's telling them. And so he goes with his lawyers and goes to court and goes, okay, they have X amount of days. Literally, it's the same thing happening thousands of years later. They have X amount of days to come to court and claim this land that they didn't know that they have. Otherwise, Mr. Zuckerberg's going to be able to have legal rights to purchasing it. And so that's what happened. And so, and not across the board. There were some properties that people did know and did sell to him. So to be fair, but there was a lot of those cases occurring. And that's happening now.
That's
a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. And it's interesting because it just like, it literally is present day. So if I heard or understood right, and this might just be a recap because my brain took off for a moment, but so there's like, I don't want to say unclaimed land, but there's still like unclaimed land essentially that he is like, hey, here's some land here, and then some people pop up, and then that's where it becomes buying it kind of thing.
Right. Pieces, right? Some of it's just pieces. So there's this Hawaiian Homes land is,
because as a white person, I don't know what it means to see land that's not owned.
Yeah, right. It's a very foreign concept to most Americans and Westerners and Europeans. But I think that really speaks to our cultural differences, right? But when you think of it from that perspective, I think it's easier when you think of it, when you understand that piece of our value system, it makes it a lot easier to empathize with a lot of the trauma and pain and injustice that Indigenous people and Native Hawaiians feel around how things went down, We also tend to be, in my perspective, even though we had a lot of like our own warring going on, like the reason Kamehameha is famous is because he was the first to unite all of the Hawaiian Islands. Before Kamehameha, all of the Hawaiian Islands were, under the rule of different monarchs. And so there wasn't really, one authority. And we say unite, but really the way that he did that is he went to war with some of his own family members to take over the different islands and kind of bring it under one unified piece for the Kingdom of Hawaii. So, but for the most part, there's a lot of, the Native Hawaiians now today, our culture tends to be pretty easygoing. We tend to be pretty passive. We tend to be pretty, like the hula and, you see it, aloha, there's a lot about our culture now that is they really are. And I think I've met a lot of different islanders, not even from the Pacific, but like, Jamaicans and other places that I have friends that are from, and they're, that is kind of what we have in common, is you come from like a tropical island, and life is pretty chill, like you don't, there isn't, things aren't fast paced there. You don't have this attitude of like needing to constantly be productive. You don't have this sort of materialistic goal.
I just need to pause you for a second, because not only are you describing like that you are very laid back, and not only are we having a problem with tourists, but like we're literally trying to go escape the fast paced and not just like hang out with the people who are more relaxed, but instead make problems and obviously spend money, but like also make a large footprint kind of thing in the, so like they're escaping their own fast pace to hang out in someone else's culture.
To kind of dip your toes into it, right? But what comes with that comes with a price, and the price is always paid by the people, the native people. It just always is. And so, to your point, there's this thing right now, we're talking about this actively within my scope of work at my hospital, that deals with anti-racism. But there's this thing right now that's going on with Americans. So I just went home back to Hawaii in July. So I was there for only a week this time, but that was the first time I've been home in 3 years. And there are still a lot of my friends and my family there, obviously, that have really been just kind of at the mercy of COVID and at the mercy of all of the development that has happened in Hawaii. And the other thing, and I say this, my ex-husband was in the Navy. That's how we met. So, I was a military wife for a period of time. And Oahu alone has a base for every branch of military on Oahu. You can drive around the island in 2 hours, and every single branch of military has a base there on that island. So even today, it is still strategically important for the United States, right? For military purposes. They do a lot of testing. Still, they do a lot of drills there. They do, but we have Coast Guard, we have Navy, we have Air Force Base, we have Army Base, Marine Base. We have everything there. That's a huge footprint. That's a huge military footprint. Name one other state in the United States that has every single branch of military in like a 1 hour radius of each other, right?
Yeah, not even being in the same state, but to be able to be within a 1 hour radius, even if you put 4 states together, I don't think you can.
Yeah. So you have still today a really heavy US military presence in Hawaii. And then you have tourism now. So back when we had the plantations, there was sugarcane, there was pineapple. The plantations all basically fizzled out in my generation. So like even in my mom's generation and my grandparents' generation, that's what they did for work. They went to the plantations. They picked pineapple. That's a hard job. Like, I don't know if you've ever picked a pineapple before. It is hard work, hard labor. And so the plantations all went under. I mean, Dole Cannery is still there, but the land itself becomes more valuable than the product, right? So that isn't something that now could be a source to our economy. And so it's just land and tourism. That's it. And then you have a lot of foreign homeowners, property owners that come and buy up property over there, and they either turn it and use it they don't live in it, or they live in it only part of the year, or they turn and they use it for, they rent it out and they use it as a source of income, right? For other tenants. But they're also, if they're not living there and if they're not American, then they're not contributing that revenue that they're getting from those properties back into our economy. They're literally stripping value from us, driving up the cost of living, and not putting anything back. So it's been really out of whack for a really long time. And I'll tell you, I have friends that live on the outer islands. Because I'm in healthcare, that tends to be a lot of my focus. And I was in healthcare when I was living on Oahu too. I worked in an ER for 10 years. And a lot of my friends are doctors and nurses and practitioners, and they live, all over. But it's really hard. The healthcare system in Hawaii is just like so broken. It's so broken. And during COVID, when COVID first started happening, they didn't want to shut Hawaii down because of the tourism. So they were late to the game, shutting everything down. I have a friend that's she's a physician on an outer island, and she really specifically serves rural communities there. She actually goes to all the homeless encampments, and she goes and gives them medical care. She's been at the front line with administering the COVID tests and the vaccines. And so she was in the room with the lieutenant governor, with our governor, with a lot of other heavy hitters who were making decisions at the table in the Emergency Operations Command Center for the state during COVID. And there was this military general that was in the room, and his proposal was that they just let the virus run its course on the outer islands, where people already don't have good access to healthcare or resources, and that the notion behind that was that if they do that, then basically you have to let the problem get so big that then they can warrant bringing in the military. Then there can be a military response, but it has to get to a certain tipping point, right, for that to happen. So his proposal was, we'll just let it run its course, get so out of hand that we actually have to take military action, because then I can offer my resources to that, right? And she's like, well, if we do that, who are going to be the first people that are going to die? Who do you think, as this is getting out of hand, which population of people do you think that's going to most impact? It's going to be the Native people. So there's still so much of what really, there is no other way of describing it than saying settler colonial mentality that is playing out in Hawaii, directly impacting Native Hawaiians today. It's almost like nothing's changed, And there's a revenge tourism going on there right now. And when I was home, it was the first time I went home, and I was like, oh my God, it looks like a third world right now. I came into Oahu and I was like, oh my God, it just, even the most affluent areas, there's this place called Kahala, and it has all these mansions right on the beach, and it, has the one of the highest property values in Hawaii. And it, even those mansions were dilapidated. There was just tons of property for sale signs. And I was like, what is going on here? It's because a lot of them are foreign owners, and they don't, maybe COVID hit them, or maybe they haven't been able to get back. And there's a lot of money, right? And that has to go into upkeep, because you're living close to the water. Salt water is really hard on everything. It just deteriorates everything. So there's a lot of money that has to go into actually keeping up these properties too. But even past that, it just looked different to me this time. And it's only been 3 years. And I could just feel the impact that COVID had. And most people there, they work at least 2 jobs. Most people I know, even my doctors and nurses were working 2 jobs. Because just, to get by, the cost of living is so insane there. A gallon of milk can cost you $10 on an outer island. $10 for a gallon of milk, So it's been rough. And there's a lot of, they're still not open. Japanese tourists still aren't allowed to come to Hawaii, not because of Hawaii's rules, but Japan's restrictions. And so the tourists that they're getting right now are all Americans, and the Americans are like tired of being locked up for the last year and a half, and so they're going to travel. There's cheap tickets to Hawaii, right? So they're going to travel there, and get their vacation fix in, right? Because they've all been cooped up for so long, and they're coming there with like such an entitled attitude and really not understanding the impact that COVID had on everybody, still is having on everybody there, but also even just their presence is having, right? So it's I think it's a really difficult time right now. It's a really difficult time right now.
Thanks for sharing all of that. I appreciate like how, I guess, thorough you were with sharing that, because I don't know, I'm glad to have gotten the chance to like hear it instead of like, keep typing back and forth and stuff, because I feel like being able to talk about it is how we continue to like spread the knowledge and stuff. And so like people in the chat were one of the people had said that like the important point about not seeing land as property in the symbiotic relationship, and I really liked that too. Another person said that in their culture their parents and grandparents picked potatoes.
Yeah.
And then another reaction for the military, but I so that it doesn't seem as like thrown off, I guess. On the topic of like Hawaii and how you said like, again, going back to Cook and the premonitions and stuff. So you had talked, like, I think I'm gonna like move past the mental health stuff right now and look at the spirituality, because I heard you mention that they had the premonitions. And so where does like the spirituality and stuff fit in all of that? And like it was interesting to see like one of the notes that I had put on here was that like the traditional beliefs were kind of moved aside for the Christian beliefs and stuff. And so it's as if being spiritual is just as foreign as the native people in some ways.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. But I appreciate that. So there's, for my family, and I know I shared this with you like right before we hopped on, but my family, I come from, my family is the Naumu line from Kauai, and then Ha'o, the Ha'o line, we're from Paia on Maui. And we also have Pa, that's from Maui as well, and then some family on the Big Island in Kohala. So that's kind of like my family chain and lineage. High Chief is Ha'o. There was a church that was built in her honor because there was a spring that she just loved and would frequent all the time when she was in rule, and it's over on Oahu in Honolulu, right across the street from Iolani Palace. So they built a church in her honor back in 1830s and named it after her. And the church is called Kawaya Ha'o Church. And Kawaya Ha'o means the water of Ha'o. And Ha'o, broken down, Ha in Hawaiian is breath, and O is God. And so it's the water of the breath of God. And so the way that the Hawaiian culture is that when we talk about Ha, when we talk about breath, we are talking about our spirit. We're talking about our soul. And we say the breath of God because you always have a spiritual connection to your source, to God. And that while you're alive, while you're breathing, your Ha, that tells you that you're alive, right? Your breath tells you that you're alive. So there is So that church is still there, and it is was the church that served for my high school. So we would go and for special ceremonies, and we would go and do worship there, and we had chapel every Monday. And there is a graveyard behind that church that has been there since the church was established, and you have to have lineage uh, to Ha'o to be able to be buried there. And so my uncle, my mom's brother and sister, my uncle passed away in 2011, and my aunt, my auntie passed away in 2014, and they were both buried there, and I think they're the most recent people to be buried there. So there's growing up, my grandfather on my mom's side, my dad is what we call Haole. He's white. He's Croatian, and he's from Minnesota. He's a Midwestern boy, and grew up on a farm in Minnesota, and then met my mom and was like, yeah, I'll move to Hawaii, twist my arm. I don't have to do 20 degree below weather and crazy, like, shovel snow every year. Of course I'll move. So that's how he ended up over there. But my mom's obviously been in Hawaii, and her family's been in Hawaii since the beginning of time. So her father, my grandfather, Joseph Kamai Ha'o, he was, he had a lot of different, he is an interesting man. And he was really kind of my spiritual guide when I was growing up. He's full Native Hawaiian, full-blooded Native Hawaiian. And he used to have a lot of conversations with me about our spirituality, and talking both about sort of, he at one time was a pastor too, and he was a bishop for a church. So he understood, like, the Western Christian teachings. He also used to study Buddhism. And I think Buddhism is probably closer to like Native Hawaiian spirituality than Christianity is in some respects. But he would be able to talk about all of those things. Like he would talk about like the ancient Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian, methods and spirituality. And he would talk about Christianity, and he would talk about Buddhism. And so like he would talk about it as if it were all one. And, he taught me, with the Native Hawaiians, we have a lot of, there's a lot of stories, but I'll stick to my family's. So our family were kahu. We were spiritual counselors. We were spiritual guiders. We gave spiritual guidance, and that was our kind of our role historically. And with my grandfather, he told me early on that, he taught me about what the signs were, what the messages were, how to recognize things. And I, at a really young age, started realizing that I was getting messages in my dream. Like, I'm not somebody that sees, like I've never seen like a spirit, or I've never seen, anybody while I'm awake, or had kind of any of that experience while I'm awake. I get all of my visions, and I get all of my messages, and I get a lot of my downloads when I'm sleeping in my dream. And I think that's just because my brain is turned off and I'm more open. And so at a really young age, I didn't know how always to interpret that, because a lot of them were like super real. Like I would have dreams where I would, to this day, I can tell you, I can recall it just like it was something that just happened yesterday, right? And so, and that happened while I was awake yesterday. The same way I can tell you what my schedule was yesterday and what I did when I woke up. So I've had a lot of like confirmations over time about that, and it really wasn't until my grandfather passed away that really like revved up to a whole other level. And he prepared me a lot for it before he died. Like I made him promise me that he would never like show up in front of me while I'm awake. I was like, just even though it's you, I would be really freaked out if you did that. So please don't do that. So he was like, okay, I'll just come to you in your dreams. And so he pretty consistently started coming to me in my dreams after he passed away almost like every night, if not weekly, for a number of years. And that was really comforting, and it helped. He died in 2003. And it was really comforting, and it really helped me to process his loss that way. And then he sort of stopped coming around. And then I lost a ton of family members and loved ones, like really close together after that. So he died in 2003. My stepfather was diagnosed with cancer while I was living here in Seattle and he died in 2006. So I moved back home in 2004 to help be closer to him and take care of him and be with him before he passed away. And after he died, so I went to go visit my grandfather's grave, and my grandfather and my stepfather are buried pretty close to each other. They were actually both military veterans, and so they're at a Veterans Memorial Cemetery on Oahu. So I went to visit both of them after they passed away, and that night I woke up in my dream, and I was in my mother's house, but it was like her house was situated in a way that it was when I had first met my stepfather. So he first came into my life when I was 11 years old, so 1991. And everything in my mom's house, like the furniture was the way it was in 1991. Like there were like things positioned, things on it was 1991. And I walked into the dining room, and I saw my stepfather sitting at the dining room table, and I could tell he was waiting for me. And then he got up to come and greet me. And I remember knowing in my dream that I was dreaming. And I thought to myself, okay, as soon as I hug him, this is a dream, so I'm not going to feel him. My arms are going to go through him. I'm just dreaming. And I went to hug him, and I could feel him, and I could feel his back, and I could feel like his arms around me, and I could smell his hair. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. And he was like, it's so good to see you. And he was like, hey, I see you have a new man, because I was dating like a different guy at that time from when he died. And I was like, oh yeah. And it's interesting because he didn't say anything like nice about him. He wasn't like, oh, I like him, or oh, he seems like a good guy. He just was like, and I had just started dating him, so I now look back at that and I laugh, because like he totally knew that wasn't going to end well. And then he was talking to me about, because at his funeral I was having a really hard time. He has children from his first marriage. He and my mother never actually got married, but they were together for 15 years. So we had children from his first wife, and I was trying to be really respectful of them at the funeral, because I didn't want to make it about my own grief when this is their biological father that's passed away. And so I had tucked myself into a corner, and the night before that, or the day before that, my mom was frantically trying to figure out like which photo to use for his casket, because the photos were either really outdated or they were of him when he was sick. And she was like, I can't decide which one to use. And so I was like, okay, so I draw and I paint. And I really like to do portraits of people, because I think that when you are painting and you're doing like a drawing, or you're doing a portrait of somebody, you have to really connect to that person. Whether you know them or you don't, even in the picture, you have to like really connect to them in order to bring their like essence through the portrait. And so I was like, let me do a composite for you. I'll do a composite of him that's up to date, but where he looks well. And so I was flipping through all of my photo albums, trying to find the right photos to use. And I remember looking through there and going, oh my God, he was there. He was at everything. He was at every event I had. He was at every celebration, every family gathering, every weekend, everything, but he was never the center of attention. But all these photos, he was in the background and he was showing up for me, right? He was being there for me. And in my head, I asked him before I started drawing, I was like, please, like, help come through to me and like connect with me and help me do right by you and do justice by you with this portrait so it doesn't look like a hot mess. And I was like, just please come through for me. And so I'm looking through the photos, I'm like, oh my God, he was at everything, but I never really like realized it in those moments that he was always there. And that's when it clicked for me. I was like, he was always there. He will always be there. Even if I'm not conscious of it, he's always there. And that was his message to me. And he's still there. And so I was like, okay, I got it. And the minute I got that, I like went to work and I punched it out in like no time. And so that was what we ended up using for his funeral. I had totally blanked that out and put that out of my mind because obviously really traumatized and in deep grief at the time. So went to his funeral, tucked myself into a corner and just was trying to like not draw attention to myself. And I could not stop crying. And it was just like constant tears, just like somebody had turned on a faucet and I couldn't stop crying. And I was trying to cry quietly in the corner. And I feel this little hand on top of my hand, and I'm sitting in the pew and I look down in like the depths of my grief and I look over to my side and there's his little 5-year-old granddaughter there who I'd never like really interacted with or met before. It's not like we spent any time together. And she had come all the way across the other side of the church and come and sat by me and just put her hand next to me. And she was like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Everything's okay. It's going to be okay. And she just kept saying that to me over and over and over again. And then I'm like, this is not helping. This like beautiful, sweet, angelic child who is a piece of my stepfather is coming through to me right now in my greatest time of need. And I just felt his love. Like I knew that was him, you know? And even his daughter after the funeral, like hugged me and was like, thank you for loving my dad. So there was so much of that experience that was really beautiful for me. And so in my dream, he was saying to me, he goes, hey, I really liked my picture. And I remember going, oh, okay. Like there was a lot of pictures of him at the funeral. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. You know, like I didn't really think about it in my dream. And he was like, I really liked my picture. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he goes, well, you know, you have to go to sleep now. And I said, well, I don't want to go to sleep because when I wake up, you're not going to be there. And he said, well, I'll stay with you until you fall asleep. So I laid down and he used to always like to tease me and joke with me. And so as I'm laying down, I'm like, I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm not going to fall asleep. And the only thing I kept of his was his phone and his cell phone as his old school flip phone. And he looked down at to where my phone was on my dresser and he was like, oh, you have my phone. And I said, yeah, I keep waiting, hoping that maybe you'll call me. And he goes, hey, let's prank call my ex-wife. We call her from my cell phone. She'll totally freak out. So that was that story. And I woke up not immediately remembering the dream, took a shower, got ready to go to work. And then it all like came rushing back to me. And I remember when I was in that dream feeling like this euphoria, like everything's okay. There was no pain. There was no heaviness. There was no confusion. There was no anxiety. There was no stress. I felt so light and love. Like I just felt love, not just from him, but like every part of my body was like vibrating with love. And I woke up going, oh my God, that was real. And this is fake. Like what I was experiencing in my dream, you know, that like kind of like glimpse into, you know, our maybe we want to call it the spirit realm, or where we are when we're not occupying these physical bodies, that's real. And this is fake. Reality is actually what is not real. And I was like, how am I going to go through the rest of my life like going about my day, going to work, pretending like any of this matters when I feel like I've seen and experienced the truth? And how do I possibly continue to bridge this duality and be in this body and experience this human existence for however much longer I have on earth to do that, and know that this isn't real, that this is actually kind of school or a test, or that there's so much more to this. And it's interesting because working in the ER, there had been so many people that have died in front of me. It's a privilege and an honor to be there when somebody passes away, whether you know them or you don't know them. I think it's more of a privilege when you don't know them, because they are almost exposing their most vulnerable moment to you, right? Everybody's their most vulnerable right before they die. And the one thing that I found to be true, no matter how old the person was, no matter how they died, if I've seen people die in a lot of really traumatic ways, and I've seen people die in a lot of really peaceful ways, or expected ways, anticipated ways. And no matter how they died, I found that the one truth was that all they cared about at the very end was that the people that they loved knew that they loved them. There wasn't a single person that said to me, hey, tell so-and-so she's a real jerk, like never to like, hey, can I look at my bank account one more time? Like nobody cares about that stuff when they die. So why should they care? Why should any of that matter when we're alive? Like love is really the only equalizer. It's the only truth. It's the only truth.
I feel like you kind of, save for like a couple sentences back, I feel like you really kind of came into what the kind of topic or title of the balancing wellness and indigeneity.
Indigeneity, yeah.
Indigeneity. Really quickly. So one viewer redeemed a hydrate. That was back when I hydrated. You should hydrate as well, since you're the one that's been oh my Lanta. How about you take lots of gulps?
Yes, thank you.
And also, I would talk while you're doing those gulps, but I've been over here sweating, so I need to go turn my air down. And we'll be right back. One moment. So yes, one moment. I'm like sweating. Like my legs are slippy. Um uh so thank you also for sharing that story. I don't know, like I don't want to call it unfathomable just because like I've been learning more and can see, obviously I think that I grew up so much in my head that it was harder to see or recognize those things. Um, so I guess maybe my question would be, why did you choose like balancing wellness and indigeneity?
Indigeneity, yeah.
How does that work?
Well, just to kind of help bring some of this to sort of, I think, complete where I was going with before I shared that one story. After that, there were a lot of other ones that followed. And one of the more recent ones was with my uncle, who's buried at Kavayaho Church. And he, after my daughter, after daughter was born, she was, I think, like 6 months old at the time. We were at a military Christmas party, and it was over at this hotel on the beach, really beautiful, clear Hawaiian breezy night. The stars were out and it was really beautiful out. She was kind of fussy, so I was taking her into this courtyard to calm her down. And I was in the courtyard just kind of looking up at the stars, just sort of soaking in all of the beauty. And this voice in my head, there's no other way to explain that, said, somebody in your family is going to die tonight. And then I was like, okay, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I having this really macabre thought when I'm having this beautiful moment with my daughter? And I kind of shook it off. And then it happened again, and it said that, so you're going to get a call that somebody in your family passed away tonight. And so I was like, okay. So I went back into the event, and my husband and I were walking to our car, and then I got a call from my emergency room, from one of the doctors in my emergency room that I worked with. And he was like, we're friends, so I thought he was just calling to see what we were all up to that night. And I could see his tone of his voice was just super somber. And I was like, okay, this isn't like a social call. And he was like, how do you know Jack Ha'o? And I said, well, that's my mom's brother. And he goes, okay, well, I'm really sorry, but he had an accident. He was in an accident, and he came into our ER. And I said, okay, is he in the ER or is he in the ICU? Because if he's in the ER still and they're calling me, he's probably not alive. And if he's in the ICU, they probably stabilized him. And he goes, he didn't make it. And I said, okay. And he was like, look, because of the circumstances that he died under, we need somebody to ID the body. And so I was like, okay, I'll be there, and I was like, I'll come in and I'll ID the body because the medical examiner can't take him in until you do that. So I was able to get there in like no time. And it turned out my mom was like way on the other side of the island and wouldn't have been able to get there in time. And so I was able to get there and help kind of do handoff with the ME, and honestly, just like, be with my uncle too, right? Even though he had passed away already, and just let him know, reassure him that like I'm here. And so that was sort of like the beginning of a lot of other experiences that I had. And I've noticed that they've even been related to, there was a young boy who was in his early 20s in Oklahoma that died in a car accident that came to me in my dream. But it turns out, and I didn't know this in the dream, I didn't figure this out until a year later, that his brother was in the Navy in Hawaii, stationed in Hawaii, and his brother is actually best friends with one of my friend's husbands. But I didn't know what that was. And so there was a lot of, that my experiences personally have all been with people that are somehow connected to me. So there is some sort of like a matrix to that, right? And I usually have experiences that are family members, people that I do know, but it even has extended to, but there has to be some sort of like a connection to me in order for that to happen. I'm like you. I am really cerebral. I'm obviously like, I'm in healthcare. Just because I was raised in Hawaii, there's like a really healthy respect that everybody, even non-Native Hawaiians, have for sort of the spirituality that exists there. Everybody has a little bit of a reverence for it, I think, and an understanding that it's there and we coexist, and it's just part of our culture there. But for me, it was really, really hard to open myself up to accepting that my experiences were real, or accepting that my experiences were valid. Because I always want to like intellectualize everything. I always want to like figure out like, what are the mechanics behind this? Like, yeah.
Okay, so I was kind of telling Chat at the beginning, but I don't know if I have ever even got to tell you. So I started this thing called My Little Book of Compliments because of how I realized that I would get such kind of eloquent, compliments. And you absolutely like had a huge influence because it was right around, and you're going to remember, but one of the things I wrote down specifically was, "You're not crazy, Jen. You're enough exactly as you are and always have been."
Yeah.
And like ADHD brain went exactly from what you were saying to like, that's where you told, like, it made sense in that moment when you told me that too, and then all of that kind of, yeah. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
share that really quickly because like that even kind of played a part with me now.
Well, I so appreciate that landed with you, and then that's something that meant something to you. That's just, to me, the truth is the truth. And I think that when we speak the truth, it resonates, right? Resonates with people. Um, I chose the balancing wellness and indigeneity because I'm not perfect. Because, I'm not somebody, I have friends that are, really good at eating organically and really good at checking all of the boxes with their physical health. I'm not perfect. I strive to do better every day. I've been challenging myself to drink a gallon of water every day. That's where my my tub of water comes from. I'm trying to do the little, like, today I woke up and I was like, okay, I need to go take the dog for a walk, not have my headphones on. I live in this beautiful, beautiful place by the lake, so just really kind of soaking in the nature and my surroundings, and then meditating. Um, and I was able to do those things and do a little workout this morning. And I was like, okay, that's good. Like I feel like I'm setting myself up, going in the right direction and getting my head on straight. But most of my life, and I've shared this with you, and I was diagnosed with depression when I was 21. Um, and I know I had it probably from the age of 13, maybe even 12. My father was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was a senior in high school, and he was diagnosed really late in the game. Most men are diagnosed with, who do have schizophrenia, are diagnosed around 18 or 19 years old. And his schizophrenia ended up having to do with sports and concussions that he had had. He used to be a baseball player and was a professional baseball scout for the Minnesota Twins. And he played for their farm team in the minors and had a lot of injuries. And he went to the Mayo Clinic and they found a lot of gray matter on his brain that they think precipitated the schizophrenia. But what had happened is he had had like an acute event, even when I was a teenager, acute stressful event, and ended up, he also is genetically predisposed to schizophrenia because he has it in his family. So it was sort of like a perfect storm. And then it just kind of manifested itself around that time. So there's a lot that I think I was closed off to in terms of spirituality because I was worried. I didn't trust my own sanity, Um, and I was inclined to answer all of the questions that I had through the lens of Western medicine. And there just is not an answer for everything in Western medicine that exists in the world, even in terms of healing. And in my ER, I would see people come in really bad shape where they have like multi-organ failure going on. And I would be sitting with them sometimes or taking care of them. And I would remember there's so many times that I would be like, we're treating the physical symptom, but this isn't really what's wrong. or we're kind of putting out the crisis of what's manifesting itself physiologically right now with this person, but that isn't the whole picture. That isn't all that needs to be healed with them. And I would see it over and over and over again, to the point where I couldn't say, I almost was like, do I need to get out of healthcare altogether? Because
I mean, I'm struggling currently right now. I'm struggling, so I completely empathize with that.
like, this isn't the whole picture. And even my friends who were like ODs or went into holistic medicine, I also didn't think that that was even the whole picture. So I had a really hard time, again, dualities. Like, I find these dualities all the time, over and over again in my life. And I think what my lesson, or what I've been called to do, is to figure out a way to bridge the gap between dualities, however it's presenting itself in my life. Because
So,
yeah.
oh, I was just gonna say, so does that lend to why I call myself a gap bridger?
I didn't even know that, but
I
yes,
absolutely fill gaps.
yes, yes, yes. I would say yes. That's how I feel. I feel
Go on, but yeah.
No, but I feel like and I'll let you speak to this yourself, but what I've seen is, I see, okay, this is sort of like the modus operandi for how we do this in, okay, say healthcare. This is the modus operandi for how we do this in holistic medicine. There is a space in between where those things can meet that is not tapped into enough. There is a way to address people from a 360-degree perspective that we are not fully tapping into yet. And I see a lot more people open to that idea, especially, the younger generations seem to be much more aware and much more open and much less about boxes and preconceived structures. I think that's so healthy. But yeah, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by not expanding our own definitions of how we approach healing. And even mental illness, like, there's so much that's been the neglected stepchild of modern medicine, right? And now we're seeing a lot of what is sort of the result of us not paying attention to that crisis and not giving it the resources, normalizing it, talking about it. Even in my parents' generation, it wasn't something you talked about. Even when my dad was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1998, you didn't talk about it. I was ashamed to talk about it. I was ashamed to tell my dad that he had schizophrenia, because it felt like a scarlet letter on me. And that's such a selfish, self-centered thing for me to admit now. Like, I think about that now and I'm like, that was so dumb of me to think that way, but I was a teenager, right? But it was also because nobody could relate to you. Who would you talk to about that? Like, I would talk to my school counselors and they would just, there was such a stigma. There's such a stigma with mental illness that I feel like we're only just now starting to unpack. And we're so late to the game doing that. And, the pandemic, I think, has exacerbated it in such a massive way, to where I don't think there's a single person alive right now that can say that they didn't experience some sort of mental health crisis during this pandemic, right? So it's not and people are not their mental illness. That's the other thing. So for me, I just suffered in silence with my depression for a long time. I had suicidal ideations. I didn't interact with people. I was like a total hermit. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to be social. I was in Hawaii. I was in the middle of a tropical paradise, and I was at home not wanting to talk to anybody or be around anybody. And I was in a really dark place for a really long time. And I didn't get the help that I needed until I was in college. But yeah, there's just,
I mean, it's interesting though, because it's like you were in that paradise, but of course your body's not going to respond because your body's busy protecting itself from whatever hasn't been sorted out.
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. There's fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? And I was in freeze mode for a long time.
Um, I was going to say something, and hopefully I can kind of pull the thought back, but one of the you were saying like we're just now kind of seeing, and then like the new generation is more aware. Okay, two things. One thought was I remember when I looked up Dolores Cannon, she had kind of described like three kind of like groups, and that like this new generation, like there's a middle generation, but then this new generation is like incredibly aware,
Oh, yeah.
like more aware than expected. And then the other thought or the other thing was some people are like, oh my gosh, it's like we have an epidemic of all the mental health or all of these things. There's so much sensitivity, and it's like, well, but we also got technology and got the chance to give literally every single person in the entire world a voice. And so what if we're hearing voices? Like I keep seeing people talking about how like researchers aren't even taking autistic voices as research because it's not research based, and it's like how are we going to start to like learn about these things if we're denying like the people that are coming up and speaking out about these things now, because we've been so like basically I've pretty much I think I've figured it out, is that if you pay attention to your emotions to the point where it stops you from being productive, then we don't want that.
Yes. Yes.
And
And
so
look at how we burn through our workforce too, right? There is this like workhorse mentality in America where everyone's really replaceable and dispensable, and you're just supposed to work yourself into the ground, and then you're really you're replaceable. Your company, there isn't this there isn't a symbiotic relationship between corporations and their employees, right? I mean, it's all connected.
wow, that's so interesting that you like say that, because like one of the things, this is so interesting, and I don't know if this is connected or not, or if I'm just like inserting myself, but one of the things that like I've been talking about ever since I learned about like the peer support position and how like they help kind of more advocate in more of a health space or like needs space. But I sit here and I think about how like if there would have been like so if like every business has like a peer support on staff, but like so uncontracted and non-biased, like isn't on any of the sides and is literally there to mediate and like bridge that gap to make it work. And I'm sitting here thinking like if I've lost 3 different jobs, and if all of those jobs had like a non-biased peer support there, I feel like I would not have lost those jobs. And so it's interesting because it's like that the way I think about how I really want to there to be someone there, or like how I would want to be like whatever we can do to start putting people in those gaps, I think maybe is where my brain went with like your symbiotic relationship between the employer and the employees, because obviously the employers don't recognize that they have to keep their employees well enough beyond what they think is well to be able to keep doing well, like the kind of creativity that comes from the spirit being able to flow through you, like you said, rather than just surviving. And so then, but then also help the employees lift them up to know that they have the right to do that and that they should be working on that.
And the thing that's so short-sighted about that, from the employer perspective, the corporation perspective, is that it is really actually in their best interest to invest in a tangible way.
Like they should have a counselor on staff so that they don't have to like get an insurance that covers more mental health or something.
They will get better retention out of that employee. They will get better results and more productivity out of that employee. They will have people that are loyal to them that want to stay. It across the board is to
Like we
their
will just
advantage.
improve. We will just improve in what we are producing.
Yes, everything.
We
And
might actually get to flying cars.
it's the goal for everybody, right? No,
Well,
it
I
is.
mean, we
No, but
passed
it
the
is.
time when we were supposed to, and I think it's because we got too busy working.
But you know, that's what I mean. We have to get off of this hamster wheel mentality in our companies and our. So I'll tell you this story. This goes back to the ER in Honolulu that I worked in. There was this period where we were starting to see all these numbers surging, these volume patient surges in our ER, and it was this turn them and burn them mentality, and that's how it is in a lot of healthcare right now, and that's part of why I was like, I need to get out of healthcare, but I'm not there yet. I'm just doing a different part of it. So there is this like everybody's a number, patients are a number. They would actually have huddles with us and say, okay, this is how many patients that you saw yesterday, and this is how long you took on each patient. We need to get those throughput times lower. We need to get the amount of time that the patient is actually occupying a bed in our ER down. We want to target 2 hours. We want them in and out by 2 hours because then we can turn more volume that way. So they would actually have these huddles with us as we are breaking our backs literally to do all of this, and we're doing it short staffed and we're doing it without water. They were like, oh, and by the way, you can't drink water or eat at the nurse's station, and you can't, do all of these other human functions. When I had my daughter, my coworkers were timing me how long I was pumping, when I would go to take time out to pump. And if I was along for too long, they would like write you up. Anyway, so there's this like consumerism even within healing modalities and healthcare, and it's so detrimental. And there's there was this woman that came in, and they hired her as a new executive to come in and kind of like whip us into shape, because we were starting to push back. We were starting to say, this isn't healthy. You can't keep doing this to us. You're running us into the ground. You can't keep treating the processes like this. This isn't sustainable. And so she came in and she basically said, look, as she got us into a meeting, and she said, look, the patients come first because that's the business. The doctors come next because the patients are coming here for the doctors. And then you guys are down here. So it was basically like, know your place. Like, here's the pyramid structure, know your place. And I was like, well, okay, that's fine. But you left one huge piece out of that. And that's where you are. You are actually below us, because you as management, you as administration are here to support the staff. That's your function. And if you're not supporting us, then none of that is going to stand up. And if you just treat people like human beings, if you just treat them like not property and not something that you can get rid of.
But it's so funny because it's like we want people to be treated like humans, but I don't think we know what humans are, like what we're talking about when we say humans, because then if you think about the phrase productive member of society, you mean someone that can like do something. And so getting them back to human means what? Getting them back to productive?
I think it just means not approaching business. Like, there's a really antiquated way that we're still doing business. Amazon's kind of a good example of that too. There is this turn 'em and burn 'em mentality, and we have to get away from that. We have to get into a more humane way of doing business. Again, bridging the gap. There is a way, I think, where we can do both. I think we can still have the commerce, the productivity, the revenue, all of those things, and have people feel whole, have people feel valued, have people feel.
So, and this might be a like I don't totally understand it, but one of the people I met that is in the UK and kind of studies history, he said that like US capitalism isn't really capitalism, because capitalism does care a little bit more about the human, and that the US is more productivism than capitalism even. And so you're saying you think that there is a way, and it sounds like, yeah, maybe capitalism. But we don't do that.
No, we don't do it. Or we bastardized it, honestly, right? We've sort of come up with our own version of it that's really not for the best and in only a very small minority's best interest, which is the people that are profiting. So I just think that we have to. I don't think that there's any way that we can continue to operate the way that we're. And I'm hoping that that current generations and future generations, that that's what they're helping to bring to the table. We
No,
just have to evolve.
I fully agree. Really quickly, first, I want you to take another breath so that we can be more intentional, or not a breath, but a drink, so we can be more intentional about the hydration. Also, we have someone in the chat, and I just felt the need to like bring this up, because it's, I don't know, neat, and you have actually specifically said the place that they're from. We have someone from Guam in the chat now, so that's neat. Have you been to Guam by chance or no?
No, but I have a lot of friends that are Chamorro. There's a pretty well-established Micronesian community, and one of my good friends from college is from Guam. Yeah. Hi.
That's cool. That's cool.
Is it a girl? Is it a?
He's a guy. He's a music
Oh, tell him.
producer. Yep.
Tell him half a day.
Well, he's listening.
Okay, half a day.
I hope he's still listening anyway. We'll see in a moment. Okay, so to make sure,
Well, to close the
yeah, I was gonna say, do you feel like
original
you've
question,
gotten, yeah,
the balancing wellness piece, right? So we're talking about the convergence of the dualities and that balance. And I think it's not about being perfect. I think it's about figuring out a way to do things that feels less out of sync than what we're currently doing. And that can happen on a micro or a macro level. And then the indigeneity piece of that for me is that, you know, I'm half white and half Native Hawaiian. And so that for me is always been, there's a duality with that too, right? I see both sides. Like I know how to move through both cultures. And for a long time, that caused me a lot of identity crisis because I didn't really know like, which one am I? Like I have to pick a side, you know? But now and I love I think I'm meant to be a connector. I think I'm meant to be a connecting piece for both of those.
like it literally sparks my joy to connect people and plug them in. Like that is a sparking sentence in itself.
Yes. The bridge.
Yeah, you're right. The cord between the vacuum and the electricity. Oh, wow. Man, interesting. Okay, yes, go on. Sorry.
No, that's it. That was it. That was the thought process behind that.
That's cool. And obviously, I think that you were able to see that better than me, but I'm glad that I got to come full circle with understanding how you chose that, and then also how we're similar with the wanting to help with the stuff in the middle, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's really cool. I feel like I don't know what to ask next, simply because I feel like there's stuff that you shared, like you said something about like the message thing and like the spirit, like I don't know where to even kind of start with like asking or how to kind of talk about how you were saying with how they go together, unless a lot of what you've been saying already does show that, which you have, but like maybe I answered my own question, or does it go beyond, like, was there more for, like, if we go back with, no, maybe I am answering. See, my brain is just ping-ponging right now. Maybe that was covering it. Maybe
The messages.
yeah. And, like, just how the E word that you used.
When was that?
I even think I, like, looked it up. ESO, EPO, E something. Esoteric.
Oh, esoteric. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think that, well, that like even Dolores Cannon's book is, I mean, I think, um, well, so so like, okay, so Reiki, I got into Reiki because
yeah, maybe we can start there with the Reiki.
I got into Reiki because I started doing meditations to help with my depression. Um, and when I was doing these meditations, I noticed that I was just able to function better. I had a clearer head. I um, I wasn't finding myself in those like deep valleys anymore, right? Um, and I started to really feel like joy again in my life. And so I was doing meditations. I went in for this massage with my husband at the time in Massachusetts, and the woman greeted us, and she greeted me, and she's like, "Oh, you're one of us." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that means." I'm from Hawaii, so I'm definitely not whatever us is here. And so she starts doing, she was like, "Oh, you're a healer, you're a light worker." And I didn't know, I mean, I knew what a healer was, obviously, and I think that there's different types of healing. So I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." She's picking up on maybe that I work in healthcare or whatever. And she went to do her massage on me. And as she's doing the massage on me, she's like, "Hey, do you mind if I do some Reiki on you?" I didn't know what Reiki was. So I was like, "Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know what that is, but that sounds fine. I trust you." And my husband was in the room at the time, and she started at my head, and I noticed that she wasn't touching me, and I was like, "Well, this is a scam. Like, you're just trying to get money out of me for not giving
It's
me a
funny because
massage."
I went in for a massage and she's like, "Well, it sounds like you more need Reiki. This like we let's do some Reiki stretching instead of a massage." And that's what
Yeah.
happened to me.
So I was just like, this is some baloney. I'm not buying this, right? I'm not getting my money's worth. I'm never coming back. Like, I was in my head being like, this is
That
such
literally is
nonsense.
probably why it didn't work for me.
No,
Because I was like, "What the heck? I don't normally pay for massages and now she's throwing my leg around."
and now she's not even touching me. Like, what is this? I could have stayed home and got not touched during a massage. So I'm laying on on the thing, and she's like, "You do Reiki?" I was like, "Sure, go nuts, like whatever, do your thing." And she seemed normalish to me, so I was like, I trusted her. And then so she starts just guiding her hand along my body, and then she comes back and goes over my chest, and she's like, "Oh, you're really blocked in your heart." And I'm like, is this the part where you like try to sell me snake oil or, like some doTERRA or whatever to get rid of, some, I don't know, whatever you're about to say. And I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Oh, I got to really like do some work over here." And so I felt her pressing down on my sternum, and I had my eyes closed the whole time. And then it was a while, I don't know how much time passed, but I do remember all of a sudden just like I started crying uncontrollably. It was again just like being in the pew at the church during my stepfather's funeral, where it was somebody turning on a faucet, and I just started crying uncontrollably. And I remember going in my head thinking, "This is weird because I'm not sad about anything. There isn't anything going on right now in my life that I'm unhappy about. Like, I'm not feeling depression right now. Like, what is this? Like, why am I crying, like blubbering on this table?" And she just kept her thumb there on my sternum, and I just started crying, and she was like, "Okay, just tell me, just say what's coming to mind. Like, what are you feeling right now? What's coming up with these tears?" I literally was struggling for a while. I was like, "I don't even know. Like, I don't know." And then I just started, the phrase that kept just coming out over and over again with me in my head was, "I can't heal the people I love." I can't heal the people I love. And I just kept saying it over and over again. And all of a sudden, after it, she just let it go. She just like let it go until the tears stopped. And then it just sort of like dried up. And then the faucet closed. And then I felt like this huge weight lifted. And I could still feel her finger on my sternum. And then I started hearing her talk, and she's down by my feet. And I was like, wait, how long have you been down by my feet? And she said, oh, I've been down here for a while. And I was like, but I could feel your finger on my chest that whole time. And she was just very much like, yeah, that's Reiki. Like, yeah, like what else, you know? I was blown away. And I left there being like, okay, that was like universe's way of totally just giving it to me and having a sense of humor at my expense, to where I went in there so cocky and so closed off and so snarky about this being such a racket. And I cannot deny what I experienced. And so after that, I was like, I think I need to start looking into Reiki more. So that's how I got into Reiki. And I found somebody that I just resonated with in Massachusetts, and she started teaching me. And at the time, I was working in a hospital in Boston in a nursery, in a mother baby unit. So I was overnight in the nurseries with all these babies, getting to cuddle with them and getting to it was just like the best. I fully, it was such a departure from working in an ER. But there would be part of what I had to do with the babies was to do screening tests on them. And when you do screening tests on the newborns, they have to be like sleeping basically, because the test is so sensitive. It can pick up all kinds of their movements, or their cries can like throw off the results of the test. So you have to get the babies sleeping before you do the test. And there were times when I was in this room with the babies, and they would be sleeping when I had them, and then obviously they would wake up for whatever reason while I'm like trying to complete the test on them. And so I was like, okay, let me, even after I got certified in Reiki, even after I was practicing Reiki, I still didn't fully buy into it. I have to be honest. Like I still didn't. There was still this like really resistant part of me. And so I went in there and I was like, okay, let me just try Reiki on this baby. And if it doesn't work, I mean, at least I tried, right? And then I just can come back the next day and try again. And I would do Reiki on the babies, and they would just like that. Like babies are so receptive. They're so receptive. And the baby would just be like, honk, just fall asleep. And I
They
would get the
haven't been
test done.
tainted by like
They
the
haven't been
world.
painted. And so one time, so I used to only do the Reiki on the babies for the hearing tests. And because I didn't want to do it in front of my colleagues, you know, and I didn't want to like, I still wasn't fully even buying into it again. So I didn't want to like be criticized by my colleagues for doing that. And then there was this one, I went into this mother's room one night to help her go to the bathroom, and I assisted her to the bathroom, and her son was really colicky, like really, really fussy. And he was screaming all the time. And he was in his bassinet in the corner, and the lights were all out, and she was in the bathroom, and I was like, oh God, this poor woman hasn't gotten any sleep. Let me just go do some Reiki on her baby while she's in the bathroom. So I have her son in the bassinet, and he like falls asleep right away. Like as soon as I start doing it. And I hear this voice from the corner of the dark room going, what is that Jedi mind trick you just did on my kid? I didn't realize that his dad was in the room. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to get in trouble? And he was like, please teach me how to do that. We have not been able to get our son. He's like, I can't believe what I just saw. Please show me what you did so that we can do that, because we have not been able to get any sleep in the last 2 days. And I was like, it's Reiki. Like anyone can do it. It's like you just, and so it was, that's sort of kind of what got started. So long story short, now there are Reiki practitioners in Boston's Children's Hospital. There's Reiki practitioners in a lot of the hospitals that I've worked at, and it's become more and more commonplace, you know, to add into um, our medical practice.
I think I've even heard of people like I don't know if it was you talking about it because I didn't know that you did Reiki, or I did know, or if it was someone else, but I know that like I was talking to someone who is like does Reiki on like pregnant people as
Yeah.
well for the baby.
All kinds. I mean, you can use it for pain, you can use it for, and I've had friends do Reiki on me long distance too.
I was about to say what happened in the pandemic type of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of there, but you have to, the way that I was taught, so Usui Reiki, um, there's like this holy fire Reiki that I do with my Reiki master, and she's actually come to Seattle to visit me a couple of times and stayed with me. And um, there's different modalities, but the way that I learned and the way that I was trained is that you have to ask permission first, right? You can't just like give people Reiki. You have to like ask permission. They have to be open to receiving it essentially, in order to do it. Just like you wouldn't go up to somebody and start massaging their shoulders if you didn't like ask them if you could do it first. It's the same concept. So, but there is distance Reiki, and I had a friend. Um, I've had friends in Massachusetts because I haven't really gotten in with any Reiki people here in Washington yet because I've been so focused on just like the 3D side of healthcare for a while now. But I need to find like a group here that I can revive and practice with. And so most of my friends are still in Massachusetts, but there's been crazy stories. Like even when I was going through my divorce, there was just this really, it was really, really bad in the very beginning of our divorce. And we're totally good now and friends and co-parent really well and have a lot of respect for each other. But in the beginning, it was really rough. And there was this period where I was like at my lowest and I couldn't, um, I literally had crumpled myself onto the ground in a ball in front of this attorney's office because I couldn't get anybody to take me. Like everybody was booked and nobody could take me on as a client to help with my divorce proceeding. And so I was just feeling really, really low, and I slumped down on the ground in the hallway outside of this attorney's office, and I just was like, I need help, I need help. And all of a sudden I get a text message from my friend Ian, who was trained in Reiki with me in Massachusetts. And she's like, are you okay? What's going on? And I'm like, and she's a family law attorney in Massachusetts. And she's like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, I just kept getting this feeling that I needed to reach out to you, and you're in trouble. And I was like, yeah, I'm going through kind of like a life altering mess right now. And I can't find an attorney and nobody will take me. She goes, where are you right now? And I told her, and she's like, oh, I have a friend that I went to law school with, and I think he practices in that city. So let me give him a call. And she goes, go to your car and wait, and I'll call you as soon as I get a hold of him. So she called him, and she texts me, she calls me back, and then she goes, oh, he's at this address. He said, come on up and he can take you, and he's going to do me a special favor and take you on as his client. And go to his office is at this address. I was parked right in front of his office. Like my car was parked right in front of his office. So there's like a whole other, I feel like there's a soul group that I'm tapped into now, right? And we kind of have like a common purpose and a common understanding, and we all identify as healers, and we all are just kind of here to try to do whatever little bit we can do to help other people while we're alive.
That's so cool. That's so awesome. I'm sorry, Mike. Did you hear Monster meow? Um, I don't. My brain stops when I look at this boy. No, that's really neat. Like I said, I had experienced the one, but she wanted to like schedule another one, so I scheduled it, and then the day that I was supposed to have it, I swear to you, and I like to this day even hope that she believed that I was sick and I had to go get tested for COVID because I was supposed to get my second vaccination that day. Like she intentionally, no, it was the day before my second vaccination, and I was like, I'm sick, I have to get tested, and so I had to cancel the like second one, and I'm, hopeful that she didn't think that I like was scared and didn't want to come back for the second one, because she was like, how do you feel? And I was like, well, you didn't massage me as much for what I paid for, in my head, but
Right?
so that was kind of really all of that, but I don't know, that's really interesting. And then I know that you, like, you had mentioned how when you started meditating, that was when you were kind of experiencing, like, happy that you hadn't experienced, and that, the second half of that phrase is something that I've said, because I found that last fall in the sense that, like, I've kind of reached a different, like, I'm happy now.
Yeah.
And I never figured out meditation. Nor have I, like I've tried to, like, be kind to myself, and, like, not everyone, but I've always just kind of wondered, like, is it the fact that I use feeling words and am so hyper focused on that, like, is it the fact that I'm doing that every morning and holding this space, kind of my meditation, that isn't the same way that others think of the meditation in which they go through the things? Because I feel like maybe the things that people meditate on, I kind of do it out loud in my stream. And then to add on to that, as I'm talking about it out loud, I experienced and cried this morning already, because I had some nice rejection sensitivity where I was researching Hawaii, and I was finding out all this information, and I was trying to tell someone, and they, paused their video, and they were like, anything else? And like, not, obviously, like, they were doing something else. I was the one that was out of place type thing, but I was like, man, I really, really, really need to, like, tell someone this stuff. And I was upset and just, trying to process it, and felt bad about it, and tweeted about how, like, I always, whenever I get these, like, extreme needs to share information, which I've learned is kind of a neurodivergent trait, like, to share information. But one of my viewers or followers responded and was like, what if your way of processing is processing verbally? And so taking that and going back to what I was saying, like, could I be doing kind of my own version of that? Because even, I don't, because otherwise, like, the idea of meditate on it, like, really just doesn't connect in my brain.
Yeah.
But I figure a lot out when I, more so talk about it in chat. And then it's like, I also don't want to, like, say that it's like, yeah, well, the more you talk about it and the more you get it out, the more you figure it out. Because, like, yes, you do, but it's also extremely important to acknowledge that, like, if you are venting in a space where people are not equipped with the ability to listen, and the ability to, like, ask questions that don't potentially make you feel a type of way, it can get really, like, unsafe or potentially harmful really fast, or at least not helpful in the way of, like, reframing. And so I feel like when I'm streaming, not only am I kind of, like, processing verbally, but I also get the chance to correct myself and kind of, like, literally, like, go through it, but I'm out loud and I'm here, like, I don't know, and it's like, but I'm present, but am I really present? And then that goes into the idea of, like, what if we all sometimes dissociate and have kind of other people inside of us who do certain things? Because, man, when I'm doing certain things, like, in my chat, I am a completely different person. Like, I was, like, rocking out yesterday, like, my hair was everywhere, and just the fact that I wake up in the morning between 5:45 and, like, 6:30, and prior to August 2020, I would sleep in, like, I would not wake up earlier than 10. Like, even my last job would let me come in later. I would never, ever, 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 ever want to be awake early. Just not at all. But, like, the moment I started doing the breakfast and feelings, I never stopped. And it's every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Like, with everyone in my community can, like, vouch for me in the like, I do not go live later than 8 a.m.
I think that that sounds like, and it's going to sound like I'm being cheeky, but I'm not. That sounds like you're channeling, and and you're channeling your own thoughts, your own stream of consciousness, your own kind of, right, like whatever pieces you're figuring out. I definitely relate to that. There's a lot of things that I process better out loud, and sort of with an audience per se, right, than I do when I'm by myself, just kind of knocking around in my own head. But the meditation is, while there is aspects of download, and this is my own understanding of it, there are people, I am not an expert at meditating by any means, okay? I am not, because I am like you, where I'm just like constantly distracted, constantly just like have a million
Trying to
things
find the places where you can slow down and you can
like
get to
you.
enjoy your brain thoughts and stuff.
So I have to treat it like working out half the time, where I'm like, I don't necessarily like, not every day do I feel like I want to do it, but I just have to just go through the motions because I know that I will feel better if I do. And with meditation, for me, what I helped me with that piece was to start with guided meditations. So I used to do in-person guided meditations with like my Reiki master, and I really, really liked those, and I responded really well to that. So I started doing guided meditations through tapes. Headspace is like a really good app that offers really good meditative practices. I think it's on Netflix now too. And there's a couple of like YouTube, like
I mean,
chakra.
there's some Twitch streamers that lead meditations
Yeah.
themselves here, and so which is one that when he was still doing them in the mornings, they were before my stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and so even then, so I guess I do. I didn't want to like say that that was my meditation, but I definitely like it felt the experience of the things. Now I do though want to ask, like, what is channeling then, and what is that helping me like with what is that?
Well, I think this is my own, just from my own lived experience, that for me, when I would do my art, that was the first time, like long before I found meditation, long before I found Reiki, long before I really like was fully tapped into what works for me spiritually. I found, and I think honestly, I think even prayer is a form of meditation, like there's so many different ways that you can slice it. And so when I first started, I was doing art and painting. I found I could be in like the studio. I started taking this painting class one summer at a university, and I was in the studio, and everybody left, and then I didn't use the bathroom, didn't eat, didn't realize how much time went by, and then the professor was coming back to the studio the next day to start our class all over again. I had stayed there overnight, like through the next day and until my class started again. And I hadn't realized that I was there. I didn't realize that that's like I had been there that long. And that was the first time that I saw, okay, I'm like channeling something here with my creativity, right? Like there is like something that is downloading right now, and I'm meditating in the sense that I'm not focused on anything else, and that I'm kind of my ego is completely out of the picture right now, and it's just about like bringing whatever is coming through to life.
That's it. It's the ego being out of the way. It's the
It's the
ego being
ego.
out of the way
Well,
that
and
makes the.
and then most meditations, you have to give yourself most meditative practices, you want to be doing like 20 minutes, because like 10 minutes of it is just you quieting your mind to get to the meditative place. And so for me in the beginning, it's just like all kinds of movie reels going through my head, all kinds of thoughts going through my head, all kinds of like noise, really white noise going through my head. And it takes me a long time and I don't fight that anymore. I just kind of like go with it. I just like, if I see something and I'm seeing a vision, or I'm like, whatever, I just kind of go with it, and until it shifts me back, and I'll just try to focus on the 3D stuff again, like, the like touching my fingers, touching my leg, just to kind of like reground me and recenter me and bring me back to what I'm doing so that my brain isn't like running the show, because our brains just run the show for most of our day. And again, I think that's why for me, I get a lot of the information and messages that I do when I'm asleep, because it's the only time that I can consciously shut my brain off. So it's a practice. It's not something that I've by any means mastered. From day to day, it's different. I had a really good meditation today before this because I really wanted to come in here clear minded. I wanted to be able to share whatever information I felt, not I felt, but whatever information was ultimately going to be for the highest good of whoever is going to be able to receive it, including you. And I didn't want to bring my stuff to this conversation because there's a lot of my stuff that is still very much at play with my ego right now. So yeah. That's it, Jen. That is it. That is it right there. Capture it in the moment, even if you're not ready to receive it. Come back to it when you are.
I need to say all of that again because I was muted, and so let me just get that back.
Oh, okay.
What did I just say?
You
Oh,
just
to go back to my compliment book, basically, is that like even I was reading in the chat. I said there was a compliment in the chat, and I said I've stopped trying to fight my brain in the fact that like my brain might not believe the compliments, and I'm just what I can do is write it down so that it's there when like I am ready and open to pay
yeah,
attention to it.
I love it.
So that was cool, and I'm glad that we got Digital Vandalist. You're back. Were you here when our guest greeted you? What did you?
Oh, off a day.
Yeah, Digital Vandalist. Let us know if you heard it this time, because she was talking to you right after you said hi. Um. Oh, we've covered so much.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was everything though. That was like literally everything that we had on our menu that we were like, this is too much. Like we're just gonna have to like go with whatever comes out. That was everything.
But well, okay, the one thing though you did mention, and as I was reading back through the chat, and I suppose this would be relevant for maybe closer towards the end since it was closer to the interview or whatever, I don't know. When I was reading back through the chat and I saw that date, August 8th.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so this is, I mean, this dovetails really nicely with what we were just talking about too, because so um part of when I started to go down the rabbit hole of like spirituality, and there's a lot of, I have to like say just personally, I think um there's a lot of new age spirituality that I don't agree with and I don't resonate with, because it appropriates a lot of other cultures and most of them are indigenous. So I have my own bone to pick with a lot of that. But so I try to be really careful about sort of the people that I open myself up to in terms of who I would consider mentors for, um, different healing modalities. Um, but astrology has always been something that I've been just really drawn to. And um, Native Hawaiians, they found the islands by navigating by the stars. That's how we navigate. And there's even this hokulea is this outrigger, this double hull outrigger canoe, and they go around the entire world annually every year, and they stop at different continents, and they kind of try to retrace the course that that Hawaiians did to get to the islands originally, and they have to only use traditional navigating systems, which is mostly dependent on the stars um, and other sailing techniques that are completely out of my scope of expertise. But I think that navigating by the stars has been such a common theme for a lot of Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people too. And astrology is just always really, just for whatever reason, spoken to me. Not an expert on it. I don't know everything there is to know. Like, I couldn't do your chart for you or anything like that, but I have like a really healthy interest in it. And again, I think it ties really nicely to a lot of other truths that I have learned through my own spiritual journey. But all of that said, there's a Lionsgate portal in the astrological world that is happening on August 8th, which is tomorrow. And part of what is going on with that Lionsgate, and it happens every year, but this year is like really special because it's when Leo, I don't quote me on this, but I think it's been like Leo and Sirius are in alignment, and the sun, maybe it's the sun and Sirius are in alignment. And so there's some sort of alignment that is happening on a planetary level tomorrow that doesn't happen every year annually when this Lionsgate portal is open from like the end of July till mid-August. So tomorrow is like a really special sort of convergence. And with that, the way that I understand people to interpret that is that it is like kind of this massive bolus, if you will, of like consciousness that comes with this this Lionsgate portal. So there is a lot of like spiritual kind of awakening, spiritual sort of like blooming, if you will, and we can harness that in whatever way that makes sense to us by kind of setting our intentions going into it. And most people that I know of that follow this stuff more closely have been doing that for like the last 2 weeks. They've been kind of like gearing themselves up, setting their intentions and like kind of preparing for this. What I have found that I've noticed is really interesting is even if you look at it from the non-esoteric, from the non-astrological perspective, you just look at like what's going on in the world right now and like current events. I know there's a lot of things that I'm dealing with at work right now that all just sort of lined up into this frenzy, if you will, over this last week. There's this Delta surge that's coming back, you know, sort of the timing of a lot of what like is going on with current events right now seems to match up with what is happening astrologically. So I think that it's kind of an interesting perspective to
No,
look
I
at.
thought it was cool because and I scrolled up and the darn chat was just too like just a titch too long. But and so if anyone who was here at the very beginning still remembers, there was a couple different people in chat where I don't know if we were talking about like I don't know. I think it was just like some sort of kind of like examples of like, I am here and I am making this decision to work on this kind of thing. Just like several kind of like aware statements stated,
Yes.
even though certain things weren't great. And so I
Yes.
thought that was neat because it was kind of consecutive in the way that people were responding to, you know, just kind of greetings and stuff. So I thought that that was neat as well. One question in the chat was what your zodiac sign is.
Oh, okay. So my son is in Virgo, but I'm right on the Libra cusp. So I was born like I'm a cusper of Virgo and Libra, and I do feel like I tend to lean Libra a little bit, especially when it comes to balance, when it comes to dualities, when it comes to bridging that gap. I do resonate a lot with Libra traits, and then I have, and this is like going really a little bit probably more in depth than what they're asking for, but my moon is in Aquarius. And then my Mars is in Scorpio, and my Venus is in Leo, and I am a Scorpio rising also. So
No, I don't know if I think Kel and I have talked about this. I don't remember if she knows her other ones, but I'm curious to know, are you, and I don't know if I've even told you I know my three, but like, what is your reaction? Like, people who understand the signs tend to be like, oh, you're,
yeah,
so I'm an Aries sun, Cancer moon, Leo rising.
Cancer moon. Oh, I like that. I see that in you. Okay. I wouldn't have guessed an Aries though. But maybe.
That's what, like, so that's why I never ever like agreed with astrology things just from a sun sign
Right.
perspective.
No. Mm-mm.
Well, because I'm not, like, I don't feel like I'm an Aries.
No. No, I don't either. I wouldn't have read you as an Aries. I would have read you as a water, which makes sense now because of the Cancer in your moon.
But isn't a Leo fire then still though?
Yeah, so Leo's fire. Where's your Leo?
That's my rising.
That's your rising. Well, that's kind of good. That's good
I
to
was
know.
told that like that kind of combination, like the way that the person who was helping me with it, like at that very day, kind of like whatever they said made me blurt out. So this combination is what kind of makes me uniquely the plug. Would that resonate with the way you kind of interpret them? Maybe does that like?
Yeah, I mean, I could see. Well, what's interesting is you have this Twitch channel, and you really do have to have a little bit of Leo in your chart to do anything that's going to put you on a platform, right?
Interesting. Okay.
This is like a stage, right? And you do have to have a certain comfort level with that, and so that to me makes sense that you're rising would be in Leo for that. I don't see you as being like that because that's two fire signs prominently in your chart, right? With your
Right.
sun and your rising. I wouldn't have guessed that. Again, you feel water to me, but I also think that like my moon is in water, and so maybe I connect to you, or the aspects of you that I'm drawn to are your watery aspects, right? And that's like how we connect too.
I'm trying to find the app just so that I can find the other signs. Specifically, since you noticed the fire and the water part, I would like to know, like, do I happen to have more water elsewhere?
There's a really good,
I just can't remember the name.
really good. I don't even know what to call her, 'cause I wouldn't call her like an astrologer. She's just somebody who is incredibly talented, and I think just I really like the way that she reads charts and does charts, because I'm just drawn to people that do things kind of in a matter of fact way. Like I don't really like even when we're talking about like really woo-woo stuff, like when people are like, oh, and you're good, like you're so what, or like I'm just like, oh my god, get out of my face, like I don't want to, like I even like the spiritual and like the emotional like stuff, I like when it's delivered in kind of a clinical way, and I think that's very Virgo of me. But I just resonate more with people that just kind of like give it to you how it is and don't try to like gussy it up and do this whole like performance and song and dance. So there's this there's this woman that I really like. Her name is K Moon, and it's just the letter K and then Moon Moon, and you can find her on YouTube, and she does charts, and she's just really good at it, and you can see stuff that she's posted. She gets really into the weeds with the charts, though. Like her stuff is just, it flies, half of it flies over my head. I have to like re-listen, but I just like her style, and I just feel she has a lot of integrity with how she presents information. And then a personal friend of mine is Jason, and he is I actually have to think of Ray of Light Tarot is his channel, and Jason is like a tarot reader, and he does just like amazing. But again, he's a Virgo, so he reads in a way that's like just matter of fact, like this is what it is, and da 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 da, and he's not all woo woo about it. And yeah, so those are, if you're so inclined, those are two people that I trust and I like.
For sure. Thank you. Okay, real quick, I forgot to read. Okay, so one of my, well, his name is Ty, the science and art guy. He said Hawaiians' ability to navigate massive distances more accurately than their European counterparts between tiny isles like Hawaii to Tahiti to Fiji, all a part of a greater population. He said truly incredible. And
Yes.
so I wanted
And
to.
that cannot go without. So we were definitely like mariners, right? Like the ultimate. And but that cannot go. I cannot talk about that in the same sentence without also mentioning that there is a spiritual aspect even to that for Hawaiian.
But that would make plenty of sense because it's not like the Eurocentric people would have known that probably.
But we all have it. That's the
That's
thing.
fair. That's fair too. It's just you guys were more focused on that, whereas we
We're,
weren't.
I of course I honor my heritage. Of course I honor my culture. Of course I honor my people and my ancestors. Absolutely, I'm totally biased when it comes to that. But I have to say that I think what right now in the current world in 2021, the important message for us personally to receive is that everybody has these abilities. There is no one person. I really just I I think we
Well,
have been
I mean, we have to be because we're spirits, and so they.
exactly and we have to get out of this like propping people up on this pedestal either. You know, nobody's perfect and there's we really have to just kind of embrace that we're all unique but we're all really connected. We are all connected. And we all can tap into kind of these superpowers that we each have access to. It's just a matter of what we
Wading
want.
through the trauma that is modern
Wading
life.
through the trauma, but that you cannot receive the way that you are authentically meant to until you address your healing. And that means on every single level. You have to do the work first. And so much of America's history has been centered around ignoring the trauma, not talking about the trauma, reframing the trauma, like, just completely re-injuring people and then pouring it on with all of these things that just kind of numb us, right, and distract us. And we cannot get to a baseline where everything is in sync mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually until we have the courage to do the healing work for ourselves. Nobody else can do it for you. You're not responsible for where your traumas came from. You are responsible for healing them and making sure that you are not hurting other people through your own traumas by not addressing your own healing.
That makes just so much sense, even like when I put it against kind of my, like 2019, it was kind of like my marker as like the worst year of my life and so many different aspects. But I feel like it prepared me. I don't know if it like traumatized me enough to the point where I had to sit and reflect during the pandemic, but we got lucky with the pandemic to have us ourselves deprived from so much of what we normally are distracted by. And so
When the pandemic was happening, I was like, yes, like I was like, this, I get it. Like, I see where this is going to ultimately lead us. Like, I saw immediately how this was a necessary evil almost for us to break down all of the systems and the structures that we've been operating under that really are not for our highest good. And we only have to learn from that. Like, that is the pandemic did what it did, but we can still revert and stymie our own evolution if we don't learn what we were supposed to learn from these events. And that's on us as individuals, right? But we are also part of a collective. So
it starts
for
with
me,
conversations like this.
conversations like this. Yeah.
Just kind of to put it to swing back to the astrology. Some people put theirs in the chat. We have a Scorpio, Cancer, Capricorn,
Ooh.
Sun, Moon, Rising. I'm thinking, and then Taurus, Sun, Scorpio, Moon, another Leo rising,
Taurus sun.
and then a Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn as well.
Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn. Oh, I love Capricorns. I do.
So, and then I found my app. So, are you ready to hear all of my other planets?
Yes. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Hold on. Okay.
Okay.
Because I want to look into it after when
Oh,
we're,
well, heck yeah. I mean, I'll just send you all the things, even though I
yeah.
know you have to be careful with it.
So you have Aries.
Aries Sun,
Mhm.
Cancer Moon, Aries Mercury, um, Pisces or Venus in Pisces.
Let me see that. See, I knew you got water. Girl, that's Venus and that's your moon and your heart.
Interesting. Okay, see, those are the things that I don't know, and so I'm glad
Okay.
I'm sharing these with you so we can go back through. Um, Jupiter in Sagittarius,
Hmm.
Saturn in Pisces.
Okay.
Do you want me to keep
And then
going?
yeah, your rising, right, was your Leo.
Yes, also Leo.
Where's your Mars?
Leo.
Oh, see, yeah, I could see you as a Leo. I couldn't see you as an Aries, but that might be my own bias.
Well, isn't one of the other ones how you more present though?
Well, yeah, the moon is how the sun
Oh,
is
but
how
I would
people
be.
perceive you, right? The sun is usually how people perceive you.
But aren't
And
Aries like not emotional at all?
no, are you kidding me? They're so emotional. Do you want me to pull my ex-husband in here? He's very emotional.
Well, that makes me feel better, but I thought that it seemed like the Cancer kind of unlocked the emotional stuff because
No, Aries.
everyone talks about the signs other than like Aries talking about Aries signs. It seems like.
Yeah, I don't. Well, so the Aries are the very beginning, right? So there's 12, right? And there's like different houses, but there's 12 signs, and the Aries are the first. Aries are really kind of the babies. They're the ones that came first, and then Pisces are last. So that's interesting that you have a Pisces and an Aries because they're the first and the 12th sign. But the Aries that I know, and I know a couple of female Aries. Actually, one of my good friends is a female. Two of them are okay. I do know Aries women, but there's yeah, they're I what I've also found to be really interesting is that the signs tend to present themselves differently in men and women, and right, in the masculine and the feminine. And I've known a lot of Gemini men, and they're nothing like the Gemini women that I've met. I mean, they have some things that are in common. They're both ruled by Mercury. They like to talk, but I've noticed a difference in how it presents itself sometimes, in the more stereotypical ways between men and women. So the Aries men that I've met, I've dated quite a few Aries men actually, and they usually tend to be pretty hot-headed. Um, they usually tend to, but they're also like doers. Like they're all about like, okay, let's get this done, let's get this done, let's get this done. And the men that I know of tend to kind of have tempers, but they also don't hold grudges, which I really do like about Aries. I haven't known a lot of Aries pretty good at just kind of moving on. They'll have their little like reaction and outburst, but then they'll like be like, okay, I'm over it the next day, and they're fine. They'll move on. They get over stuff pretty quickly. Oh, well, before Aries is the first, so technically before Aries is going to be Pisces, right?
I was muted. Haha, they caught me. Um, I said, guys, I said my dad's birthday. So Daddy Fur, because Daddy Fur comes in
Oh
the
yeah,
chat.
I
They
saw
named
that.
him.
I
They
love
named
that, Daddy
him.
Fur. I
They
love that.
named him. I said his birthday's in a couple days, so that would make him a Leo, right? And then, well, when does Aries start?
So Aries is the end of March to mid-April.
My mom is the first day of spring.
When's that?
21st.
Of March? Okay, so I think I think, oh, 21st. So the most of the signs usually start or end around the 21st to the 23rd. So she is probably a Pisces Aries cusp.
Interesting. I was just thinking, because I was like, wait a second, would my mom be an Aries woman? But
Yeah. No, I think she's just barely a Pisces.
interesting. Well, I'm so ooh and we've just got so many people in the chat, and I'm just so happy, and this has been so much fun, and I'm just so grateful. And is there is there anything else that we like haven't touched on? And then chat, do you guys have any other like questions or anything that you guys can think of? Oh, Aries is March 21st.
Hmm. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So she is.
Well, I'm absolutely my mother's daughter. What's neat is how, and I'm gonna check the viewers right now just to see if she's listening, which she's not, which is okay. But sometimes she is. I just that's the quote she always used that I'm like, you are me, like you are your mother's daughter type of thing, and it's always been whenever she would say it, it would always be like in a negative kind of way. But what's been interesting in it, like I feel like I kind of hit a certain level where we were kind of on the same level. Hi, yeah, you're right. It is past dinner time. My bad. Um, 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 Frick, what was I gonna say?
No, that it was with a negative connotation that she would say that you're right.
Yeah, well, as I've like, so we were kind of on like the same level of like, I don't want to say like learning the things and taking care of our mental, but I think that, and I don't want this to sound like an insult because I don't think of it as such. I think of it as how we're just trying to operate and survive in our lives. Am I think because I get to be part of the younger generation or whatever, I'm a little bit a step ahead in terms of like awareness. And so where she has managed her mental and stuff to survive through life, and obviously I don't think it was like a survival mindset, and she was still, having a fulfilling life, but like in the way that now I'm learning about like these things, and I'm seeing like my traits and stuff that come through, but I'm also seeing them like turned positive, and like how we saw this before is now like I'm kind of seeing it like this, and it's neat to see how
Yes.
much of like my
Yes.
mom is in me. It just
Yes.
sucks that she's down, like she's on kind of like the previous layer where she isn't quite there. But what has been really great, and I think I don't know if I told you, but I think I may have, like I shared one of my or she was here for one of my interviews, and like she was so proud of me that she wants to take it to like the special ed teachers and the school psychologists because it was such new information, but like I sold her on it.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue that I had with the guest that day, like sold her on an idea that she was very skeptical on beforehand. And so I
That's beautiful.
humans and spirits and things and brains and just everything is all it's been way more fun existing, I guess, in the past
I
like 6 months.
every day, no matter what, because even
I
with
should
my
say
dad,
8 or 9 at this point. Jesus, holy frick. Can't even reference last year in 6 months anymore.
but so much of the the trauma that most people, it comes from their origin story with their family, right? And most of the healing has to start there. And I think part of that is just a natural part of the cycle. Like you just said, you went from a place of interpreting your mom this way, and then now you have a deeper appreciation for her as you get older. Becoming a parent for me, that was like a huge pivotal point for me. And I realized that, like, oh my God, there's half the time my daughter actually is a lot like my mother, but then I'm coming through as my mother when I'm parenting her. And but it's been such a beautiful thing to see my mother as a grandmother. It's been so beautiful because we joke that she's like such a better grandmother than she was a mother. But my mom she was just really busy. She was working all the time and she was stressed out all the time. And
Yeah, you're right. It's because they kind of get to learn from you now and kind of put it into play because they're not directly responsible for how you turn out. And so the pressure
exactly,
isn't there.
exactly. But I'm so grateful every single day that my mom and my dad are still alive and that I can experience them being grandparents and that I can experience myself as an adult now, seeing them through adult eyes. And I think of all the people that lost their parents at a younger age, and that cycle was cut off prematurely for them, and how much harder that healing is for them to navigate. And so I don't know, there's a million and one human experiences, and I'm so grateful for mine, the good and the bad, especially the bad, because it made me appreciate the good more. And
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
if we can get to a place where we can say that much, then we're okay.
And I'm glad, I feel like that's a good spot to kind of like wrap up and close and end with, because I feel like that right there. Why did I just in my brain say, Jen, don't forget to put your seatbelt on? And then look to my shoulder. All right. So back to where we were at. You said getting to the point of like being able, the words aren't coming up, but like
Being
recognizing
grateful for the good and the bad, the dualities, both
the
dualities.
dualities and the good and the bad. And I think that that just kind of brings me, you know, it was a strap in, because Jen's about to go on her rant of why she loves her breakfast and feelings so much, because I have the feeling where it's there for you to choose from. And it seems like every freaking conversation always comes back to what would it look like if we had the ability to like see our emotions non-judgmentally and like then decide what to do next. And to do that would be come with identifying those feelings.
Jen,
And that is
that's
literally,
meditation. That's literally what meditation is. It is taking the ego out of the equation so that you can observe your reality in a way that is non judgmental. That's what meditation is.
I don't know, man, but 5 days and I've been doing this for a year, and I'm like, it's I say this all the time that I can't wait until I have the words to be able to describe like just everything that I've experienced in this past year, because the feeling words are the biggest thing that have made the difference for me.
But I think the point of it is that there isn't any one way to come to truth, right? So you just came to the same truth that other people experience going through meditation. You didn't have to master meditation to get there. The truth is the truth. So it'll come to you.
I
So
feel like that. No, I feel like that's that makes me happy to know that like it's almost like as if I'm providing an alternative form of trying to figure out how to get your head on, because most people suggest meditation and it's like, well, maybe if you don't want to look into meditation, the least you could do is look into these words that you could potentially apply to the things you're feeling inside of you.
yeah,
Um,
all connected though.
yeah, someone in chat says, "Wow, Jen, you've literally helped all of us meditate each day," and again, it's kind of like it's like meditation for the fidgety people or something maybe, and that's why we do it this way. Because
Exactly.
Mindset by Dave also, like, there's two other people that I follow that do meditations in the morning, sometimes that bleed into my streams, and it's just. And that's why I want to be a hub, because I want to be able to find all of the different places for people, so that if this doesn't work for you and the meditation does work better for you, here's your options for those, you know?
That's it. You nailed it. That's it right there. And you are the hub, and you are the connecting piece, and you are the bridge. And that is a beautiful purpose to have, and a beautiful role to play for a lot of people. And you are helping, and you are helping them heal too by doing that, by being you. And
By living my last name.
by living your last name and your
And
first.
my
I
first
love the fur.
name.
I love the fur. I love it.
Well, and the fur, but also genuine.
Genuine. I like that.
And that was both of the hub and the gen, both of those were pointed, like, I didn't see those myself, but the moment they were pointed out, it was like, makes sense. Genuine hub. Okay.
Perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me here, for inviting me into your space, into your life, and having this friendship together. And I thank everybody else for being here and for contributing, and just so much love, so much aloha, and so much light to all of you.
Thank you so much for being here. I hug. This is a hug for you.
Hug, hug,
This is a
hug.
hug. Thank you very much. If you don't have anything else, I guess we can. Goodbyes is so awkward.
You hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Well, I guess that I hope that you have a good rest of your evening now. It's evening for you, and this is my first and only like evening later stream for me, so this was a boundary push for me too, but like I was so ready for it because like it's when the things that you're like most didn't like, I don't know, I had the energy and adrenaline to do it because like this was the thing, just like driving home is really difficult, but the day that I may have had to need to say goodbye to my dog and I got the opportunity to go the day before and not have to be there on the day, it was like, frick yeah, we'll drive there and back. Perfect, easy. And it was completely different than what it would have been on the next day, which was potentially not even driving at all. So
I don't get to be fully myself. I'm practicing. I'm trying to bring my full self into my work every day, but I don't often get to show up as a 360-degree person in my work every single day because I have to wear different hats. So I so appreciate this opportunity to just be able to be myself.
Sounds like I need to come up with some feeling word merch that you can wear in healthcare. We will just start out here with this nice feeling words mug,
I love that.
my handwriting and everything.
Oh, I'm getting one of those. I love
I
that.
also have a mask with like the middle says radiant and then a bunch of other like positive. Yep. I have an empowered hat, a discombobulated hat.
I'm buying all of it, and I have colleagues that would love that too and really appreciate it.
So it makes I'm excited. Just thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Take care.
See ya. Okay, my friends. Okay, my friends. Hello. Are we here? Hello? Hello? Oh, wrong one. Let's find the other one. Let's find my camera. Camera, come back. Activate. Ah! Hello, guys. Hello. How are we feeling today? Welcome. Welcome. So I'm gonna check for somebody to raid since it's an evening and we don't always get to, it's a completely different vibe to check out. Thank you guys so freaking much for being here, and Digital Evangelist, thank you for the thank you, and Kel and Ava and Jack also thanks for being here. Herbal Magic, I'm gonna do as much as I can. Nini Corn, Thunder Tracks. Sorry guys for not saying hi potentially right when you walked in. My timer wasn't working. It was supposed to be like, I can't always respond to you. Also, Shannon, Potchfad, Dr. Bo, Visionary Stevo, Metakite. Just thank you guys all so freaking much for being here. So, how are we feeling? What are we up to? What are we gonna do? And where are we gonna go? Is anyone doing anything super exciting tonight? What the heck is up? Okay, so it looks like one of the people in our community is live now. And they're doing a self-care Saturday. I'm not sure what they're playing, but it said I think they're playing Pokemon Unite. So we're gonna head over to there. Let me just play the Monster Mash while we're still here. Let me turn down the desktop audio so you guys don't deafen yourselves. And we'll just turn on the raid song and we will get headed right on out of here. Again, thank you guys so freaking much for being here. We're gonna head over to I just say Povey. We're going over to Povey's stream. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Saturday night, because it's a Saturday. If you don't have the emotes, you can unlock them. If you do have them, you can copy the first message. If you don't, you can copy the second message or make your own or whatever you want. Stick around with us, my friends. I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and listening. This is a record hour stream for me as well. So yeah, I love you guys. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to fast forward to the meows and then I'm going to feed the boy. All right. Okay, guys, bye. I love you guys so much, and you have a great day too. Bye.
Let's go. Oh my